Oh, yeah, but when it's,
We're live.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining us for this workshop. Would you like to kick it off with some introductions, maybe?
Sure, we're happy to. This is Molly North and Paul Silverman, and we've been working with them, Tracy, Justin, myself, and Cassidy, with our Safe Streets for All federally funded grant, and they are going to present. So I'm just going to figure this out.
Okay, thank you.
How can everyone see, okay? So that you can as well. There you go.
Yeah, great.
Everybody has a 21 or later. Air.
You need a
Power
charger.
cord.
Power cord.
I see everybody's got the.
The USB.
I'm gonna have to ask my wife to go home. Sorry.
Oh, you need that.
Big chain.
They do.
The magnetic one.
It's the new magnet, not the old.
The charger?
Like won't fit that. I wanted that.
All right, are we ready? Please go ahead. Okay. Thank you for having us. As Kim said, my name is Molly North. I am one of the engineers working on this project. We're excited to be here with you tonight. So tonight we'll share with you an overview of the Safe Streets program. So you know what we're here to work on, a project timeline, where we came from, where we are now, and what's coming next. We want to talk about the stakeholder and public outreach that we've done in your community over the last 6 months or so, the emphasis areas and strategies that we've developed with your community, and next steps. So the next steps will include coming back to you again for a leadership commitment. This is the resolution that, have they seen a draft of it?
No,
Yeah, that would be in the future to have you review a resolution to endorse the emphasis areas and strategies. And then a broader action plan that outlines a lot of the strategies and tactics. And then we want to talk, one of the fine points that we want to put on tonight is that this action plan is kind of it's a sort of stepping stone, so that we have a specific outline of what the priorities are in town, what the areas are, and what the themes are that we want to be working on to improve safety in town. But that is a stepping stone in order to apply for further funding for implementation. So there are a lot of opportunities right now for implementation for safety funding. But this is really it's in many cases a predecessor before you can apply for funding. A lot of grantors want to see that you have a safety plan in place and you have specific prioritized locations that you want to improve. So this is what that would do. So the purpose of a Safe Streets action plan is first to understand the community concerns, which we think we've done here. Second, to identify the high crash network and a high risk network. The crash network is really a specific mapping of the crashes that have been reported and recorded. The high risk network can additionally include places where we're seeing near misses. We don't have crash reports because there aren't crashes that are happening, but we know that they're because of near misses. These are high risk areas. They also can include areas that people are avoiding totally because they don't feel safe. So they're not walking on Third because there's no sidewalks, for example. So that's the high risk. High risk can include those additional areas. Third is to set a vision on how to achieve safer streets, including crashes and risk areas, as well as how to proactively mitigate things through safety planning, design, operations, and maintenance. Fourth is to adopt a plan. Hopefully we'll be adopting an action plan here. And then And then fifth is to apply for funding. As we talked about, the implementation, the action plan is this, the step before the implementation funding. Sorry, that's okay. So I want to acknowledge that there are a lot of things already happening in Lions that are working in tandem with this, that will be, some of those ideas will be incorporated into this action plan. These can work together. This is not replacing anything else. There's been a lot of really good work done in Lions, including your comp plan, your Highway 66 BEL linkages study, the Highway 66 ACP, the downtown parking study, sidewalk study, Safe Routes to School, past and current, Highway 36 speed limit study upcoming with CDOT, and the street lighting study. So there are a lot of things that really are play well with this action plan. So this is our timeline. Phase 1 is complete. That's our information gathering. So that is where we collected data and then came to your community specifically to ask for more input so that we had a more complete picture. Phase 2 is where we are now. We did some deeper dives with public and stakeholders to develop emphasis areas and strategies. We have gone to the boards and commissions earlier this month. That line should be just down one more. We're here now with you, the Board of Trustees. Phase 3, Paul will talk about later. This slide is really a reference for you. You have this presentation, so you can follow this link if you'd like to learn more about it. But this is just to say that the funding for this action plan came from the US DOT. It's a federal grant that has real specific outlines for how the action plans need to look. There's 8 components of an action plan. And so we will make sure that our action plan follows the guidelines of the funder. Okay, so as we get into the data, this is kind of where we've come from. I'm going to summarize where we've come from, and then Paul's going to kind of take us towards where we're going. So we came to Lions in October, or sorry, in October, prior to October, we got some crash data from the local agencies and put it on this map. We can see here where the hot spots are, the red, and then that one yellow intersection is Broadway and 5th. Probably no surprise to you where these hotspots are for the density of crashes. Next slide. When we put the call out to the community then to say, where do you feel unsafe? Put a pin in if you feel unsafe walking, biking, or driving. We got 203 comments online and then 42 in person at the open house. And in those comments, if you go one more slide, 71% of the comments were related to walking, biking, and mobility devices. So this gives us a really clear indication that people feel unsafe using those particular modes, not as much with the driving. Next slide. So when we take that last map and we turn it into a density map, we can see again that the vast majority of the comments are on Highway 36 and Highway 7. This is in alignment with the crash reports that we started to see before we even talked to your community. And it's probably not surprising to you that these are the concerning intersections. It does mean that some of the solutions will need to be in coordination with CDOT, as those are under their jurisdiction. When we look at the online maps, 60% of the concerns, those top 2 put together, the sidewalk or bike lane, and then bike and ped crossing, 60% of the comments were related to biking and walking infrastructure. So we can understand from this that, again, same as the last graphic, that people are mostly concerned about their walking and biking experience. The next slide shows us that 62% of people are primarily transporting themselves by personal vehicle. And the second graphic shows us that 73% of people choose their mode because of safety. So taken together, these 2 graphics, these 2 pie charts tell us that if we address safety, we can expect a mode shift in town. If people feel like the biking and walking experience is safer, then their choice of mode would most likely, in some cases, shift to biking and walking. Next. One last slide to show you more alignment. When we asked online in a survey, what factors prevent you from walking, biking, and rolling more? The most prevalent answer was I don't feel safe crossing at intersections. And the second most prevalent was there are not enough sidewalks, trails, and bikeways. And then the third is it feels unsafe or uncomfortable. So this is just what we thought we would find and what we did here were all really kind of mirrored one another. We kept seeing alignment on and on as we got more feedback. In case you're curious about who those stakeholders are that we worked with, Town of Lyons staff was a big part of that group, as well as the schools and school district. The green indicates the emergency responders, fire, county sheriff, and then business owners. And CDOT has been really involved in this process with us. They've been a really good partner in kind of helping to identify some solutions that could work to help improve safety, and have actually shared with us some funding opportunities for some safety improvements. And Lyons residents. So we identified one resident from each of the areas of town to be stakeholders on our group. And we walked with the stakeholders through town. We saw even more alignment. The priority infrastructure needs were missing sidewalks and improved intersections. So those two kind of keep rising to the top. Priority safety measures included enforcement, education, signage, and lighting. And the main locations of concern looked a lot like the places that we see in those other maps. The 5-way intersection of 36 with Evans Railroad and 2nd, 5th Avenue at both Main and Broadway on the west end of town, the west end of downtown, and then 3rd Avenue at High Street. Turn it over to Paul.
Great. Thanks, Molly. So, again, there are thousands of these safety action plans occurring in local agencies across the country. This is a paradigm shift at the way USDOT is thinking about traffic safety. So we really want to align with, their approach. They call it Vision Zero. You probably have heard of that. It comes out of Europe, but also a safe systems approach. So the way to think about this is it's not really just like one strategy. It's not like, okay, we'll go engineer and fix everything with better street design or new infrastructure or traffic controls or something like that. But it's that everyone plays a role, whether it's education, emergency response, enforcement, and that the plan is a holistic look at the safety culture of a community. So, what's really positive about Lyons is you have this traditional street grid, you have a very walkable, bikeable town, but you also have these big, fast roads that come through with a lot of non-local traffic, and it can be a barrier. So how do we address that? How do we balance that? Following this approach that is really a grassroots effort. Next slide. So again, those are the categories, we call them the 6 E's. So the action plan that you will ultimately see is it's not going to be just, new traffic light here, new bike lane here, new roundabout here. It's going to be a blend of many of these types of safety treatments, including education, working with first responders, enforcement, using technology with enforcement, evaluation. What the federal folks like to see is a lot of transparency in setting goals, monitoring their goals, and not just saying, yeah, we support this and then put it on a shelf. And equity as well, making sure all segments of the community have a voice in the process. Next slide. So the way they do this is they start at a very high level, a thematic level, a very broad primary outcome, which we'll show you. And then we bring that down to an objective, or what we call an emphasis area or a key theme. And underneath the key theme, then we have very specific strategies. So some of these strategies could be applied under multiple objectives and multiple locations. But this is the way we drill it down in a safety plan. Next slide. So the overarching goal of the action plan is to design and maintain a safe and equitable transportation system in Lyons where all road users can move freely without fear of harm or injury. So that's our number one goal. And then each of these objectives, which we vetted through the public, through the stakeholder committee, we did research with peer jurisdiction plans. Obviously, Boulder County is doing their own plan, but these are broad safety themes and we'll tie them to measurable goals. So it may be, reduce pedestrian crashes by 80% or reduce speed through town by 5 miles an hour or something like that. Next slide. So again, based on all the input that we got and based on the field work that we did and the research that we did, our 5 broad themes here are reduce speeding, improve bicycle safety, improve pedestrian safety, improve intersection safety, improve school zone safety. So what we've been asking as we've stepped through the outreach process with various stakeholders and your commissions and the public is, do you agree with these themes? Did we miss something? For example, drunk driving, like, is that, something that needs to be up there as one of those 5? So that's the feedback, one of the feedback we want. And then at the end, the other feedback we want are the priority locations, which we'll get to in a couple slides. So these were vetted with the stakeholders, town staff. We're very comfortable with these 5 broad themes, emphasis areas. Next slide. So then the strategies are, how do we tactically implement measures to get to these broad objectives? So an example is under one of the E's, or in this case, a couple of the E's, some of the strategies that could be employed, again, they could be employed under multiple of the theme areas and at multiple locations, but speed enforcement. So this could be done through a task force. It could be done through various different agencies. It could be done through technology, automated speed enforcement, red light cameras. There is legislation enabling that now. High visibility program that with education and law enforcement and publicity, targeting specific types of enforcement. It could be just in school zones. It could be just in speed areas on the state roads. And it could also be improving your crash reporting practices and thresholds, or getting the emergency response out of the firehouse faster. Next slide. Education. I'm sure you're familiar with some of these programs, but media campaigns around major concerts or peak season at Rocky Mountain National Park, signage around schools, educating the community through going to community meetings or at the schools or festivals, community events, like reminders about rules of the road, or educating people how to bike safely, safe routes to school events, walking school buses or bike buses, audits, business supports, handing out flyers in businesses, online information, having a safety person on each different community task force. So there's a lot of education strategies. Really, obviously, a very big bucket here is the engineering. So there's, of course, designing and constructing more complete streets. Some of that is the missing infrastructure that you all know about, whether it be sidewalks, bike lanes, trail, lighting, more upgraded traffic controls, but physical traffic calming to slow cars down, curb extensions, narrowed lanes, landscaping, roundabouts, speed limit changes, traffic control devices. Could be more signing, marking, the way you phase your traffic lights coming through town can all play. And then even maintenance, things like faded signs, marking, vegetation, sight lines, snow clearing, street sweeping, all of that is in the engineering toolbox. And then policy. Policy also plays a really important role. So if, say, you wanted to support the technology angle of enforcing speed limits, you would have to pass an ordinance to enable that within the town. Stricter education could be one way. Dedicating more funding to your capital improvement program to budget for missing infrastructure, zoning and site planning codes that could mandate more sidewalks, building out or repairing them, design standards in your road code for complete streets, policy around the school, crossing guards. So there's a lot of policy angles that we'll recommend under these themes in the plan and be very specific about it as well. Next slide. And then evaluation. So it really is a feedback loop that, you know, you set these strategies, you start to implement some of them, and you come back and you say, hey, how are we doing? You know, we set this goal, we wanted this change in speed, crash, mode share, whatever, make it transparent, ask the community how we're doing. Do you feel safer? You know, are you walking and biking more? Have you seen a difference? So the evaluation feedback loop is also important. Next slide. So then this brings us to the priority project locations, and Molly mentioned a couple of these. You know, one thing I will say is that, you know, this is a report, it's a plan. It's not going to deliver construction-ready drawings for any specific improvement, but it's a stepping stone to get there. So for each priority location, we recommended a strategy or two to be further developed. So there's different ways that these strategies could be developed. Some could be as simple as through the study, developing a feasibility level concept, test fit of a specific type of roadway design. Others could be doing a traffic study. Others could be doing a demonstration project. And like Molly mentioned, we have a CDHPE grant already awarded to the town to do just that around a pedestrian crossing with a temporary demonstration. The last could be just going right in with this action plan and applying for a grant for design and construction money. So this is a very busy table. I'll just pick on a couple locations. So for example, Maine to Broadway, it was one of the bright red and yellow locations on the crash map. So what we see there is a safety need to reduce vehicle to vehicle conflicts and vehicle to pedestrian conflicts and more safer crossings for pedestrians. So a roundabout or removing some turn lanes actually could be something that would achieve, there would be an engineering strategy, safety solution to achieve that safety, meet that safety need. And our recommended next step there would be to do a conceptual layout for town staff to review, to see how that would fit, how much it might cost, maybe work with CDOT on it to see how viable it is. I'll pick on another one down there, the 36, the bridge over St. Vrain, and up by Planet Bluegrass, extending the sidewalk. So there's need for better pedestrian infrastructure that was pointed out as a high-risk area. So we're recommending that we could just go right to grant funding for that. You don't really need an engineering feasibility study for adding some sidewalk there, give the right of way, just go for the grant and get it built. So next slide. I do want to point out a couple demonstration projects. So you already actually have the demonstration project down by Railway Avenue, right? Railroad, thank you. And it's something that can be done with paint, bollards, signage. And so we've recommended a couple of those down there. You know, one would be possibly at High Street and Third to do some neighborhood traffic circle, like a very mini type of roundabout. That could be done with temporary materials, low cost, easy to fund, a demonstration project. So you can see how it works. Does it meet your objectives? And then you could put it out there permanently. So some of these can fall out much faster. So we had about 14 of these locations, different, you know, priority safety needs, safety solutions, and next step ideas in here. And so really the feedback that we're looking for is, you know, are these the hotspot locations from your experience in town and speaking as a board of trustees? I think we have one more slide and we can come back to this map. I'm gonna kick it back to Molly just to summarize what we've heard from the other commissions we presented to. and then we'll go back to the location.
Yeah, so earlier this month, we presented to 3 different commissions. Health and Human Safety was first. And I will just summarize. We obviously spent an hour with each commission, so this is very brief summary of the conversation, but with Health and Human Safety, we talked about CDOT. Because as we mentioned, some of these improvements would really be on CDOT jurisdictions. We confirmed that CDOT would allow the improvements that we have proposed at a high level. As we move forward in conceptual design, we would need to coordinate with them. We confirmed that the town is not committing to funding. There was concern like if we say yes to these ideas, is the town gonna put all future revenue towards these projects? We said, no, this is kind of a stepping stone to acquire further funding. The town may determine that some of these low-cost demonstration projects would be a good use of some funds, or may determine that, no, we will fully look for external funding to do any implementation. So it could kind of go anyway. And then we did receive 3 follow-up emails from members, and there was alignment to prioritize these 4 locations, locations 1, 4, 5, and 10. We can look back at those in a minute.
Okay.
The Parks and Rec Commission we talked with on the 13th. They were real curious about whether wildlife had come up in any of the previous conversations, and it hadn't. But their perspective was that there was some wildlife activity maybe near like 5th and Main and Broadway that maybe wasn't contributing to some of those crashes. And wanted to talk about golf carts and particularly kind of how they share the trail system. And that education isn't enough. We need more for that kind of management of that mode. Again, confirm that CDOT would allow the improvements kind of at a high level. And then confirm that this will set us up for funding. So it's kind of some similar conversations there. And then with economic vitality, I'll let you actually do this since you met with us.
Yeah, their big reaction was safer pedestrian networks, and walking is really good for business. So they said focus on crosswalks. They support traffic circles, roundabouts, anything that slows cars down. That's very good for business in their view. And they supported automated enforcement, speeding or red light cameras. Not so much to generate revenue, but they acknowledged that it could. So that was their takeaway.
And the last slide, just, oh, no, oops.
Yes, so you can take that or you want me to?
So today is kind of the end of phase 2, or this, your feedback will be the end of phase 2, and then phase 3 will be the development of the State Streets Action Plan. And we will take that draft back to the public and the stakeholders for their review before we come back to you with our final action plan reconsideration. Anticipating that will be in March, so it's all going very fast for us. All right, do you wanna go back to the map maybe?
Sure.
That sometimes.
This is great. Thank you so much for all your work on this. I personally have a number of questions, and I imagine the board has a number of questions too, so if it's okay with you, I've been writing them down and holding my fire. So that you can get through your
We're ready.
presentation. So, I mean, this is a great time for us to ask you all the questions that we have, and, yeah. So who would like to start? Tanya.
I would love to know how much a roundabout costs and whether that could be funded via CDOT or US DOT or some other entity than us, because I can see a few locations where roundabouts would be really helpful.
Roundabouts can be, depending on their size and if they need right-of-way utilities, they can be 2 to 5 million. You can use a hodgepodge of funding sources.
And traffic circles.
The traffic, like the mini traffic circles, like on a neighborhood street, but I would say like a big roundabout, like on 36 and McConnell or 36 and 66 would be, those are multi-lane roundabouts, so they can get more expensive, but you can work with CDOT to see how much they'd be willing to pay, but we're doing several roundabout designs and other local agencies around the state, and I mean, they've used federal grants to pay for them. They've used some local funds. They've used developer contributions. And You know, they've also used some CDOT money as well. So it's, I think one of them even maybe a dollar grant contributed to some of the funding.
So typically, based on projects, I'm thinking of Estes Park or Summit County where I've seen lots of roundabouts being installed recently. What percentage would the town cover?
So a typical federal grant would require a 10% match. State grant might require 20% match. So, yeah, they've been getting more expensive, of course, with construction costs going up and supply chain stuff, but
Tracy had she's on as well.
Tracy, did you have something to add?
I was just gonna say, my experience, the federal grants had also is 20%. I've been applying for a few federal ones lately and they're also about 20%. There are other programs that could help supplement our share, our 20% share, such as DOLA has it's called LOMA, but it's a local agency match program for some of these federal grants. So as Paul mentioned, like you can do a hodgepodge of funding. But one thing about the roundabouts, as Paul mentioned too, is just sometimes the right of way is not all town. You might be dipping into private property. So then you get into negotiating and purchasing private property if you don't have enough of your own right of way or CDOT right of way. So those are other considerations that can add costs to a roundabout, but just things to consider.
That's why we recommended most of the roundabout locations for a concept.
Yeah.
Layout, and that's part of our contract with Justin and team, because that'll help you figure out a little bit, are we looking at 2 million, or is there a bunch of earthwork and right away and it's actually 7 million to do this location, and maybe that's not the best solution then. So that's why we recommended some concepts for a couple of them.
And I think that's great. And that was kind of my biggest question was, it's fantastic that CDOT said, yes, you can do these things, but did CDOT say, yes, we will pay for these things?
Their checkbook was not open.
Oh.
Unless I missed it.
What's the US Department of Transportation funding source on this? Is it recent?
We're in
IRA bill, or is it a continuing program? It's been
We're in
around for
year
years, or-
3 of a 5-year federal infrastructure program. And one of the sub-programs is Safe Streets for All. It's a $5 billion pot of money. It's only eligible to local governments. States can't get it. Tribal entities, regional councils can get it. And it's for planning, demonstration, and implementation. So for example, planning grants are relatively cheap. I mean, they're like, a fraction of a penny on the dollar. So the success rate in getting the planning grants is really high. In fact, the program's undersubscribed. But once you get up to the implementation, we're like, hey, I want money to do 3 roundabouts, then you're really competing. And it's oversubscribed because it's a larger dollar amount you're asking for.
It's 5 billion nationwide,
Yes,
5 years.
yes.
So the priority areas, sorry, the objectives on slide 21, these are not in order of priority. These are just the 5 objectives. I just
Yes.
wanted to, okay,
Yes.
great.
Notice, I was thinking that too, should we say that they're not in order, those?
Yeah, we numbered them, so we could talk about them as, yes, but they're
Okay.
not, right, they're not prioritized.
Okay,
Great.
Yeah, I was struck by your comment. You talked about us being a very walkable community, but with these high-speed roadways coming through. That's, if I look at the, what is that? The heat map to show the density of concerns, I see that the majority of them are all on CDOT roads, and I'm just wondering what the level of cooperation we would get from CDOT for making any of the suggested improvements. I mean, we've seen how hard it is to get them to lower the speed limit, and perhaps this new effort that we're doing with them will finally get us to lower the speed limit on 36, but most of our problems seem to be on the CDOT roadways.
maybe Tracy has an answer for
Sure.
how well CDOT can work with us, which I think is pretty good.
Yeah, I was going to mention with the fund, just going back to the funding for a second, some of these federal programs, as Paul said, when you're implementing or applying for construction, you're competing nationally for that funding. And so it's kind of difficult. The planning grants, as he mentioned, which is for like design and studies and stuff, it's a little easier to get those awarded, which is what we did here. But when it comes to constructing and implementing some of these solutions, going more for state or local, local grants, you have a little more chance of being awarded those funds. And CDOT has a lot of transportation programs and stuff that are filtered down from federal highway, but it's at the state level and you're just competing just at the state level. So it's much easier to get funding. And really, on any project that we present or that we would like to see implemented, it really is up to us to come to CDOT and say, this is our conceptual idea and plan. And then you can get their buy-in and see if they're willing to work with you on it. They're not going to pay just come, be like, oh, this is on our right of way. This is a safety issue. We'll pay for it and build it and all that. It's really up to us to come to them and present them a solution, get them on board, and then we can apply for any funding opportunities they have available and manage the whole project. But they were one of our stakeholders on our walk, and they're part of our stakeholder group. And I'm really glad that they were able to attend to really see some of, and I think they understand some of the safety concerns we have. So they're definitely willing to work with us to find solutions, but it's really going to be on us to come up with a solution. And it's going to be up to the town to find the funding, and it's going to be up to the town to implement it. So that's kind of how CDOT works within the town limits.
This might be a good time to mention that CDPHE grant. So CDOT sent the CDPHE opportunity to staff, I think to Kim, and we helped develop a solution, a budget, a narrative, and we applied for a $10,000 grant and were awarded that. And so, or you were. And so it really took a lot of coordination with CDOT to say, what we're thinking for this demonstration would be a raised crosswalk on Highway 36. Are you okay with that? And they said yes. It would be at the that 5-way intersection we've been talking about with Railroad, 2nd, Evans, and Highway 36. And we've had a lot of back and forth conversations with them about, well, we found this vendor, but maybe it's not ADA compliant. Well, no, we can't do non-ADA compliant. We're gonna find another solution or another vendor. And so they're really, I think Bryce is our contact that we've worked with, and he's been really solution oriented. He says, yep, let's try something else. Let's find a new vendor. Let's find a new solution. Let's keep talking. So I think there's a spirit of collaboration and solution oriented from what I've experienced.
We work with other regions of CDOT. We work with other state DOTs. I've been very impressed. They're not just talking hot air, they're putting their resources legitimately behind safety improvements. So they've been right up there suggesting some very innovative stuff.
And I love the possibility of doing demonstration projects, because that seems like a low cost way to find out if something really works. And if people will use it the way that we think that they will. I'm really curious though, on the table, on number 9, the 5th and Evans demonstration project, how would you do a demonstration of a pedestrian underpass?
The underpass is long-term. It's not we're not,
Okay,
yeah. If
sorry.
if people use the raised crosswalk because they're, want to get across the street there and to the river front and all that stuff, then it was, what did the stakeholder mention about the possible development there that could, jointly work through that an underpass alignment for that connection.
Got it.
Yeah.
So, sorry, to clarify, because is confusing. So if you go up a slide, Kim, when you look at 9, the solution, a potential solution would be a raised crosswalk or a pedestrian underpass. And then if you go to the next slide, 9B is the demonstration. So this is saying that a raised crosswalk or bulb outs be the demonstration.
So we
That's the
recommend that the
purpose.
next step be a demonstration rather than, hey, let's do a concept or write a grant for an underpass. We're just saying, do the demonstration there.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're right on that demonstrations are intended to be low cost, quickly installed, quickly removed if necessary, and iterative. So let's use the third and high as an example because we all care about our kids getting to school safely, right? So let's say our first blush, we want to put in bulb outs because we think that will really slow the turning movements at that intersection. Well, we find that with snow management, it doesn't work, or we find that people are driving over the bulb outs because that solution doesn't work. All right, let's iterate. Let's take the bulb outs out. Let's put in a traffic circle and see if that is a better geometric engineering solution to slow cars at the intersection adjacent to the school. So the demonstration, you're right, there's meant to be low cost, quick installation and iterative so that we do a lot of before and after data collection to see, is this meeting the goal? Is this helping? And then, yeah, maybe the bulb outs are working, but we need to just change the geometry a little bit or make these two corners bigger and these two smaller, and we're gonna adjust it for the next iteration. Now we love it. Now we're gonna apply for more funding to install this permanently. We're gonna take out the bollards and put it in concrete, or something like that.
Great. Other questions? Mark, anyone?
I have one specific one about Third Avenue and Main Street at Old Main. There's a reference there to turn restriction. I'm not sure what anybody had in mind on there, because it's a one-way.
Yeah,
street on there, so.
that means either flipping some of the directions of that fifth leg, whatever, or just not letting people make certain turn movements at certain hours just to reduce the number of conflicts. Like a lot of times highway agencies, traffic engineers, they will try to serve every possible movement all the time at every intersection, and that's less safe. So, yeah, you have a grid system, maybe you can't make a left turn from, one approach to the other during rush hour, and that's one of our possible recommendations.
I think it's like
Yeah.
where Old Main and Third and Main all come together because people coming down Old Main trying to turn left onto Third, or it gets a little
During the summer.
dicey.
There's some turns that require a little bit more, sight distance and, multiple conflicts unexpected from a traditional four-leg intersection. So we haven't nailed down which ones, but it was something that came up in the field walk is, hey, that would clean this up a little.
So speaking of time of day, we obviously have a different paradigm here during the summertime for those 12 weeks when traffic is incredibly heavy coming through town on the weekends. How was that taken into account with all of this?
So we definitely looked at some traffic data, traffic volumes, and talked about, special events or seasonal stuff that impacted traffic safety, but this isn't a traffic study per se. We do want to make sure that the safety recommendations address seasonality and special events, like whether it's something at Bluegrass or just visitors to Rocky Mountains. So we're very mindful of that, managing that, and not impeding local circulation and just calming the through traffic.
Because, I mean, there are Saturdays where the traffic is backed up literally almost all the way to the Circle K gas station.
Mhm.
We have heard that, we've looked at some of that data, our goal in this study is not to accommodate the through traffic, more of it and faster. If there's gonna be traffic here, we want it to be slow, we want it to be safe, we want pedestrians and bicyclists in town prioritized. We're gonna manage what's out there. We can have a bigger discussion with CDOT about, overall growth in traffic heading up to the park or something like that, but
It's probably actually safer when it's standstill traffic.
For sure.
It is, it's quieter, it's safer, but it can be inconvenient, so it's a double-edged sword.
Anybody else? I just want to make mention of our most effective traffic mitigation strategy that I know of that was completely, I don't want to say illegal, but it wasn't endorsed by the town in any way, shape or form. And does anybody remember the taxidermy dog
Yeah.
on Evans?
I do.
There was a taxidermy dog. It was pretty big.
You look like a collie, I think.
A pretty big taxidermy dog that somebody picked up at like a flea market or something, put a leash and a collar on it and put it in the street.
It slowed people way down.
It worked.
It did.
I don't know what happened to it, and I don't know who was responsible for it.
When was that?
Oh, gosh, that was 7, 8 years ago?
Yeah,
It's been that long, hasn't it?
Yeah. it
yeah,
was.
I think when we reconfigured here.
Oh, it changed.
Took a lot of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we're all
That's
about
a great
innovation.
demonstration.
We're all about innovation.
I don't know that CDOT would approve that.
This was on
Probably
a side
not.
street. It was on a side street. Oh, then, yeah, we just have to.
Oh.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have to pay that.
That's right.
Well, thank you so much for making the trip up here and for your work on this. I think we're probably all really pleased to see the level of community engagement that you have through the course of this project. It's, as you can tell, it's very important to all of us. So, so we appreciate all your hard work and staff's hard work.
Thanks for your feedback. We look forward to presenting the full plan.
I look forward to reading it. All right, we'll take a break before our 7 o'clock meeting. We are live. Thank you, everybody. I will call the Tuesday, January 21st, 2025 Lions Board of Trustees meeting to order. Can we have the roll call, please?
Yes, Mayor Rogan,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Williams,
President.
Trustee Henrik,
President.
Trustee Dottie,
Present.
Trustee Lowell,
Present.
Trustee Browning,
Present.
and Trustee Delman.
Present.
Thank you. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Here is, I'll read the land acknowledgement. We must acknowledge with respect as non-native people that the land on which we stand, live, and learn is the traditional territory of the Ute, Cheyenne, and Arapaho people. We also recognize the 48 contemporary tribal nations that are historically tied to the lands that make up the state of Colorado. We'll take a short moment of silence. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Anything anyone would like to change? I have some changes. First, starting from the back, I would like to remove the executive session for tonight. We heard today that the Tebow annexation materials will not be ready for the February 3rd meeting. So I would like to remove that. And Brandon, should I do these one by one for a vote, or can I do them all at the same time?
You can do them all at once. This is especially the first two. These things are related.
Yeah, they're actually all related. And then I'd also like to remove item 8 under general business, which is discussion direction on the Tebow executive session. And number 3, which is discussion direction to staff on public comments at the IGA special meeting. Because Tebow was the bulk of the next meeting and Tebow is not going to be on the next meeting, I was thinking that we would have the detailed IGA map discussion at the next public meeting. So they're at the next regular meeting, so there will be public comment. So then we don't need to discuss item 3.
There won't be a special meeting
Right, there will not be a special meeting
on the 28th.
on the 27th.
No special meeting.
No special meeting. Okay. Yeah. This is late breaking news as of today. It'll be conducted at our, right, we'll talk about the IGA map at our regular meeting on February 3rd instead, since the Tebow annexation will be. So, those are the changes I would like to make. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? I'll call for the vote on the amendments.
That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And then let's vote on the agenda as amended.
And that motion also passes unanimously.
Thank you. Looks like we have no audience business tonight.
A little bit of snow, you know?
Did you have any, did you have any turned in?
Wow. Don't be so quick there. All right, so let's move on to staff reports. Sergeant Sears.
Hello, good evening. Of course, over the weekend, everyone heard about the few shots that were fired in town, so just give you a quick update on that. So that was when the storm came in. It was pretty bad conditions out, and our deputy assigned that night was shoveling the sidewalk at the depot and heard what he thought was a gunshot, and then looked over towards Broadway, saw only one vehicle that was kind of stopped in front of Lions Automotive. So he figured, oh, it's probably came from that. Wasn't sure if it shot at him or how, you know, and so he tried catching up to the car as was leaving town, but with the weather, he said he was trying to go, got up to like 60 and his car was all over the road. So, did try and follow Longmont, and other deputies responded and tried. They did continue east out of town on Ute Highway, And then he kind of lost them, and, we had officers stationed on, I think the closest one was on, Ute Highway in Hober, and no vehicles ever passed them, so we're assuming that they went into Longmont. So we're working on some leads. Yesterday spent all day following up, at all the businesses along, Ute Highway and Broadway for video. Got some, waiting on others. And then fortunately, if this was clear weather, we would already have a suspect. So it's just the weather, with those cameras and the snow, it's just, they don't work very well when it's blizzarding out. So that's the only drawback on that. Looked at some of Longmont's cameras, hoping maybe we get lucky on finding anything, but still their cameras, the same thing. So hopefully we can get some good footage from some of the businesses. On that, the deputy did give a pretty good detailed description of the vehicle. So at least we have that to go off of, especially for the video from the businesses. So that's good. Best thing is nobody was hurt. Quite a bit of damage. So there are four gun or bullets that we know for sure were shot because we recovered all those bullets, and I don't know if there's any more, but so we got some good evidence we can send off to hopefully get some DNA and stuff like that. So still lots of follow-up to do. Appreciate the public's, the town's information on Facebook happenings. There's a lot of good stuff, so we use that to follow up some people, folks for cameras and stuff like that. So that's any questions on that?
The only one, this was clearly a high caliber round, and I'm talking like clinking with a smaller caliber, like a 22 or something.
Yeah, it was a higher caliber handgun person right now. I didn't see our day shift deputies followed up because on Saturday morning, we didn't even know, if anything was hit, and so they ended up checking around. They thought maybe the depot was hit. They looked around there, and then I think the Redstone Liquor called, and they had a two into their business through the windows. Amazingly, it was just windows and some damage to some shelves and stuff, but no liquor bottles, high-end liquor bottles got hit, which is pretty amazing. And then the business just next to him that hasn't opened up yet, I think it's the Lions Corner. And then Lions Automotive also had one. Like, they didn't even know they brought me a bullet. Like, oh, we just found this on the floor. But I went over there, and like at the very bottom of their garage in the metal aluminum, there's a hole. Which is so, but yeah, and it's, I need still following up with, I'm gonna get a bulletin sent out to law enforcement agencies around here to see if they had any similar situations, and then check with Longmont too. I mean, this is a pretty common occurrence in like Longmont, Lafayette. They have a little bit of a gang issue, and a few months ago, we did a little operation just east of Longmont for the same thing. Cars were going out in the county out there, just cranking off a whole bunch of rounds, and it started to escalate. So me and a couple of our SWAT guys got unmarked cars and just sat out there and waited, and they came back, and we chased them and pursued them into Longmont and caught them, and they were two juveniles at Longmont that Longmont's gang unit had been watching. So I don't know if it's related to them. I have no evidence of that, but this is a fairly common occurrence. I mean, across the country these days, really. So.
But you don't feel like there's a threat to public safety at this time?
Absolutely not. I mean, if this would have been, business hours with people out and about for sure, but I don't think nobody was targeted. It wasn't, indicating, the shops, everything was closed. Town was pretty much a ghost town at that time of night. And then especially with the weather and everything was just random. People shooting out the car. So,
Glad nobody got hurt.
yeah, so pretty scary stuff. So yeah, I'll keep you guys updated. Anything I can share. So talked to our detective supervisors today. So once we get I'm still working on all my follow-up reports and going through hours of video, but they'll take it over once everything's done and go from there. So, yeah. All right. Old Man Winters next Sunday. or this Sunday, no, the second, February 6th. I think they're expecting like 2,000 participants, give or take. They made the change up the course a little bit this year, so it's a little bit bigger. So we have like 20+ deputies or flaggers working it, so along with, I think, state patrol. So that'd be good. I'll be the supervisor for that. So, since it's starting and ending in town. And then our last block camera finally got installed on January 8th. So that's up and running now. And then the follow-up, Mayor, from last meeting, you asked kind of the difference in the calls, why we were a little higher. I think it was 171. So that's all pretty detailed in the annual report that I just sent off today, but really looking at it, it's traffic stops, extra patrols, things like that. Nothing like property crime and persons crimes were actually down from last year, which is pretty significantly, which is actually really good. So
Great.
hopefully that continues. And then just calls from the first couple weeks of this month, we're up 28, and that's all traffic. We've had a lot of people sign up for extra duty traffic, which is good. So, and then let's see, we're at 107, that's on the 16th, and then tickets are up about, I'd say closer to 15, but we're at 24. But since I pulled this, several people have written tickets and some extra duties. So accidents finally are down 3 to 1. And the one that we had this year was from the snow, and it wasn't this last snowstorm, it was it was just a minor, you just driving a little fast and slid, so. And then now with all the cameras in town, I can start gathering stats for all cars now coming in and out of town, which will be nice. Fortunately, I don't have that data to back up from last year, but at least we can start it now. But from the 1st to the 14th, there was just over 106,000 cars that came in and out of town. 53,000 came into town and like 52 out of town. Not even. About it.
Right, thank you.
Yeah.
Questions? Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Stay safe,
Yes.
stay warm.
Yes, that's a little warmer today. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, have a good
Thank
night.
you. Right, administrators report, please.
Thank you. I have a few items in my report this 2 weeks. Wanted to let you know that we did get the sustainability grant from the county that we typically do. And staff is recommending that of the 15,000, 10,000 go toward more gas powered mowers being converted to electric. And 5,000 go toward a community-wide composting program to be developed for yard and food waste. So most of this, there's only a $2,000 actual cash match from the town for the 15,000. But those were projects that the county was interested in this person for their funding. Sergeant Sears didn't mention it, but it's just good to know that animals that are now picked up by animal control here in town will not be taken to Longmont. If an animal is found or turned in, they'll all be going now to Boulder County Humane, which is a little further, a little different situation for some of those animals, but they were not able to work on an agreement with Longmont Humane. If some of you were seated when we were having trouble with that contract, we were not able to get that negotiated. So once again, important to get your animals licensed here in the spring and April. We will have a reduced licensing day so that if they do have a town license, most people bring them to town hall first if they're friendly. And we will hang on to them for an hour or two, try to get out there on Facebook. But if not, now they'll be going to Boulder, which will cost the owner to get them out. It's quite traumatic for the dog and oftentimes for the owner too. So please get licensed so they'll be brought here instead. I did put in a little blurb about Lions Valley Townhomes as a reminder to what their agreement with the state is. And I was glad the state included us on that communications. Basically, the housing out there is for a total of 35 years of affordability on that project, if anyone's asking. Sand Green Trail moved along last week just fine. The goal is to have all the bridges, I'll just call them creek crossings, installed by March. They want that prior to any water starting to come up in the spring. So it looks like we are on schedule right now for that. Aaron did tell me this morning, the US 36 water line out by Planet Bluegrass, did get completed on Friday. So, that project is, complete before the cold weather, which was nice for everybody. Several Parks and Public Works updates. I'll see if any of you have questions about those. As well as our brownfield update. That was part of that Stan Tech area-wide plan. And none of the businesses took them up on our offers to, do a brownfield study of their own sites. So they are saying, let's just use the town of Lyons, since you have several buildings that have some issues going on, and we will work on a remediation strategy for you and help you submit for funding if you want to from the state, from CDPHU to then fund those remediations. So if that's okay with the board, we'd like to move forward with that. It will not be a big staff time issue. Cassidy has been the liaison to CDPHE and Stan Tech on behalf of the town, and it's not a big time. Any questions on other items in here, Trustee Lowe?
Why only 21 of the Lions Valley townhomes? Why not all 40?
I had to read that twice myself when I first got that letter. It is, when you read it close, I made sure I did it just like they said. So it's for those 21 that CDBG assisted with. They only applied that apparently to 21 of them. But, so what that tells me is that the funding they received was applied to a portion of the project.
So what about the other 19? Are they similarly?
They have
guaranteed
the
for
low
35 years?
income tax credits and the restrictions that come with that. This was just a letter from HUD saying our money is now, we feel you've met our responsibilities and we're closing up the project as being accepted.
And this will be continually monitored during the 35-year period? What is risk-based scheduling?
I would guess that comes into play if there are concerns, or if there's an incident, fire, flood, it'll be reviewed regularly. If, risk-wise, I can find out more about it if you'd like. I'm sure there's an agreement
No,
between
I'm
the two of them. but-
curious whether they didn't certify all 40 of
Yeah.
them, and then I just
Yeah.
try to get some insight into what the monitoring is.
Yeah, it took me a bit too, because I was like, that doesn't match the numbers of single families nor the number on.
They must have just
the townhouse
designated
portion.
funds for X% of the units and then loan tax credits for the other X%.
Yeah, I didn't get a copy of their agreement between the
could-
two of them.
But I mean, we could
Sure.
ask Paul, perhaps.
Well, I can ask the woman that sent the letters.
Yeah.
And it
No,
would
no, I'm fine. We don't have to go any further.
Okay,
I'm happy it's got the 35 years.
yeah.
It's flat.
And then I don't know if Cassie, Director Eystone is on tonight or not, but her financial report was also there. Oh, she's not, okay.
I had one.
Yeah.
Actually, two questions, one kind of a follow-up. On the Lions Valley townhomes, when Paul Capps was here, he said something about a waiting list.
Yes,
And he was gonna follow up
Yeah.
and tell us how their waiting list worked and how many people were on it. I've seen vacancies advertised. I never heard from him.
Yeah,
I'm curious,
That's a good point.
whether there is a waiting list or not.
let's follow up.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
never heard from him.
you had brought that up before and I
Yeah.
wrote him and asked for that specifically. He did not follow up with me either. And, I'm happy to ping him again and say, what's your status on your waiting list? Because there are several empty units.
Yeah, which is what was inconsistent, and so we have to first go to the waiting list, because I can't see.
I'm happy to do that.
Waiting list while
Yeah.
they built, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I will inquire once more.
Unrelated question is the listing agreement complete for the Apple Valley
Yes,
water plant, so it's now officially listed?
yes. Got, everything was signed final today.
Yep. So I don't know if you got it posted, but yeah, you have everything.
We've done our,
Okay.
we filled out disclosures and the buy, or the seller's agreement and.
Anyone else? I have a couple things. Can we do some communications around the animal shelter change? Put it in an e-blast and maybe even the newsletter, because I think people are really used to thinking that their animals are gonna be at Longmont Humane, and the Boulder County shelter is much different. So I think
Sure.
that would be great. And then for the community-wide composting project.
Yeah.
Longmont is in the process of considering creating a community composting center. And so I just wonder,
Partnering.
yeah, I wonder about partnering with them somehow versus doing it ourselves. And then maybe using that extra money to replace more gas powered equipment.
And I did see that Cassidy is on here. She may know a little bit more about that, but the first phase of this is looking at how to make a robust program. So we can, I'm sure that can be part of that planning part of it, is what's already out there that we can utilize. And then what's the need?
Yeah.
Because I think if some of you may remember, for the business community, Stone Tupways had, you may not have known this, they had a compost bin that everyone on Main Street could use.
I don't know that.
Yes, and everyone could bring their scraps there every day, and when they closed, that went away. So our businesses aren't composting either. And so I think she's gonna be looking at this from several different perspectives, just to see, is it even feasible? Because you can purchase compost services through some of the vendors for trash and recycling removal. But I think they wanna look at ways to not only maybe offer it, but also utilize it. So we'll see. But I can certainly, she's up there, but we'll pass on it.
Okay, sure. Great. Thank you very much.
And then on the finance report, I think you probably all had a chance to look at that. We oftentimes go right to that sales tax number, and it's remaining healthy. So November itself, November sales were almost 11% higher than the year before. And overall, we are remaining, what's her number this time? I think it's around 8 to 9% higher than last year at this time. So this is the first month of the year that, oh no, it's not, there was one other. We've made that shift again, that more sales are non-local than local, which happens during the holiday season usually. People ordering online. Marijuana revenue looks like it's gonna stay pretty steady with last year as well. And she is doing year-to-date revenue and expenditures. I'm not gonna read all this to you, but we do know that revenues exceed expenditures in all the funds except Park and Rec and Sanitation Fund, which has had some significant, the Park and Rec was anticipated to be in this situation. We were gonna use some reserve funds by the end of the year. The wastewater plant has had some significant costs regarding chemicals and services that exceeded what we expected. Questions on finances from the report? I know she's working on year end now and closing that, but we have to get through all of January before she can start fully coming up with those numbers.
Any questions? Great job on sales tax, everybody.
Yeah.
Keep spending money.
And we did have one anomaly again this month.
It was,
That's the out of town orderings.
Amazon.
57% is the high year for November, so people report stuff.
Yeah, no, that, not that anomaly. We had one business anomaly that paid more than they typically do. Were they catching up? She put an inquiry into the state because it is a whole new business. We haven't had the report before. So we want to make sure they have the right lions. And did they? That was on Friday. Okay, haven't heard yet. Okay. But if so, and if they're gonna be a regular, that would give us a little boost. Great. Okay. Any other questions for the administrator?
Well, since we're talking about remittance of sales tax to the state, can we be sure that every business in town is remitting sales tax? Have we had any echoes of any businesses not remitting sales tax that we need to know about?
None that we're able to share with you at this time, but I can tell you that Cassie watches those very closely and we have a good relationship with the state. We can make a call anytime in question.
Great, I meant to send an email. That reassures me that she's tracking.
Cassie's very good at that. Okay, thank you very much. Is there a legal update tonight?
Just a couple of quick things for the Board of Trustees. I want to give you a quick update on some legislation we've been working on at the Capitol. Mostly my partner, Ken Fellman, but myself to a lesser degree. There's new legislation in the Capitol. It's HB 25-1056 concerning telecommunications deployment. And essentially what this bill does is further restrict our ability to regulate deployment of really all kinds of wireless communications devices. The bill is extremely problematic. It conflicts with federal law in numerous ways. In terms of the shot clocks we're required to review permits under. We're working with CCI, the Colorado Counties Incorporated, and CML, along with many other local partners, City and County of Denver, City of Aurora, et cetera, to try to get this bill changed or defeated in some way. There's also issues with cable franchising this creates as well. So, and kind of a strange irony, the cable industry is against this bill as well. And so we're hopeful that we can get it changed or defeated, but it's just one of the probably many during this legislative session of bills that create some real problems for us if it were to go into effect. So we've been working on that. I'll keep updating you if, on the progress of that bill. Our CAMU first legislative meeting is this week, so I'm sure I'll have more information on other bills that are out there that will affect our interest, and I'll keep you updated on those. Other than that, we've been working on the general offenses ordinance we're hoping to bring up soon. There's some kind of last minute substantive changes that are required to get made. And so once those are finalized and we can put that in a final form, bring that before you. As was previously mentioned, we never received a TBO response, but we're hoping to get that back soon, which is why all those items are going to be moved. We don't have a date yet by which we think those can be heard, but we'll again keep you updated on when that will be continued to and when we think we can finalize that project. Any questions for me?
Mark?
The mayor and I were talking about this at the break, and there's an article in the CML magazine about local lodging taxes, but it focuses on home rule municipalities. Do I remember right, there's a case pending before the Colorado Supreme Court right now about statutory towns' ability to collect lodging taxes that came out of Salida, I believe. And so, is that what the Salida case is?
No, the Salida case is about our other favorite topic, the noise ordinance.
Noise ordinance, that's what it was. Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
so our firm is representing the city of Salida and their noise ordinance case. There's two other noise ordinance cases that are closely related to that one. And so there's currently pending before the court all three of these cases, and they'll be at some point probably early this summer decision that clarifies the rights of all cities, particularly statutory municipalities, to regulate noise in the state of Colorado.
So if there's going to be a CML meeting, they might consider doing some type of a backup legislation should So out of that case, there would be an authorization bill pending at least in the legislature.
Yeah, there's been talk of that and of some sort of legislation to fix this. It's just a matter of kind of bad statute drafting, which is created, as a problem for not just the noise context, but in the CDOT right away context as well. So definitely a desire on CML's part to get a legislative fix, I think. But as of right now, there is no pending bill or anything. But we are defending Salida and hopeful that the Supreme Court will agree with us that our ability to regulate noise is ensured by the Colorado Constitution. So, the Colorado state statutes.
Thank you.
And it's early in the legislative session, so who knows what surprises are in store.
Yep, I think that's a very accurate statement.
Anybody else? Thank you very much. We have no ordinances or public hearings tonight. So Clerk Vasquez, will you please read consent into the record?
Yes, item 1 is resolution 2025-05, a resolution of the town of Lyons, Colorado, awarding and approving a professional services agreement with Martin and Martin Incorporated for the Flagstone Culvert Inspection and Repair Recommendation Study, Project 24-Culvert-01. Item 2 is resolution 2025-06, resolution of the town of Lyons, Colorado, approving an application to Northern Colorado Water Conservancy District for cancellation of temporary use permits. Item 3 is resolution 2025-07, resolution of the town of Lyons, Colorado, approving the Lyons Integrated Weed Management Plan. Item 4 is resolution 2025-08, a resolution of the town of Lyons, Colorado, appointing 2 new members to the Board of Directors of the Lyons Regional Library District. Item 5 are the January 6, 2025 regular Board of Trustees meeting minutes, and item 6 are the January accounts payable.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? There a second?
Second.
Anything anyone would like to remove tonight?
Number 6.
Number 6.
Number 3.
All right, let's go ahead and vote on consent as amended.
And that passes unanimously.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Oh, yeah, just on 6, we just got that in the paper. And for this time, but at 179,716.38.
Yeah.
Eastward construction, just one of those.
Yep, that is, Dietzer Construction is the same Green Trail corridor. And, they did not have it in when she processed AP on Thursday. And today he called and said, I was really, hoping to get that check this week. So, it's here if you're not comfortable with, doing it. Of course, that's your prerogative, but he did ask if it's possible to present it to the board to approve.
Satisfied. So I move, we approve January accounts payable.
Thank you. Is there a second? Sorry. Any further discussion? Thanks for the explanations. I'll vote.
That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Trustee Browning?
Just a question of point of clarification about the weed management policy. Trustee Lowe and I have been working on the Wildland Urban Interface Task Force, and we walked around the hill with some of the Boulder County Parks and Open Space people. And there were discussions with no decision made yet about whether Boulder County Parks and Open Space might want to do some limited, perhaps drone spraying of herbicides under to control deep grass and white ryegrass. As I read this policy, it limits herbicide spraying on town managed land, but town owned land. But that particular part of Coney Hill, although there's a portion of it that's in the town limits, the town doesn't own that land. So I guess the question of staff was, there's nothing in here that if Boulder County Parks and Open Space wanted to do it, if this board approved it, there's nothing in here that would prevent spraying on non-town owned land. We decided that was something to do with making that decision.
The county would follow their weed management plan for that acreage that's adjacent
Right.
to town, but owned by them.
It would be
It would be their plan.
Attorney Dittman?
Yeah, there's a state law, if you remember from the previous kind of discussions on the weed management plan, that we're not allowed to regulate third parties' uses of pesticides currently in Colorado. And so we can't regulate what someone else does on their property. We can only regulate what the town does on its own policy. And so that's what this integrated weed management plan is all about.
You went into that before, we communicate adequately to the residents, our ability to do anything about that.
I believe so. I remember that, the county that followed up after that whole, and there was
Yeah.
quite a presence from Lions in the area at their meetings. And I'm trying to remember. So I think those who were most concerned about it probably were educated, but I don't know if we educated about the state law. We can certainly
I'm
add
not
that
sure
to
it's
a
as relevant
newsletter.
now as it is in the summer.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
just
We
so
could-
that they know that.
we could do it
Some
for
of this is
timing.
out of our control.
Yeah, I can add it. Well,
I know
And-
during our last aerial spraying discussion, we did put out information that on the state law, and as did Boulder County, that the town could not, regulate it. And if you had concerns, you had to go to the county and get those addressed. And so I know we've done some education on this in the past.
My impression, Mark, was that the spraying of that 26 acres of Boulder County Parks and open space behind Prospect Mealy neighborhood, it was still very much up in the air, and I think they said they weren't going to do it, even though they mentioned the efficiency of using a drone, the ability to target better with a drone. But that was one of the reasons why they suggested that we do the cut and haul of all that stuff around the perimeter, but just an aside, it was clear to Mark and I, looking at what had been sprayed and what had not been sprayed, was that portion of that did get sprayed is much more fire resistant than what had not been sprayed. So
Because they were targeting cheatgrass, right?
it's cheatgrass, but there's a taller one called feral ryegrass, which grows about this tall. And all this stuff flops over and just creates mats of dry timber.
So my interpretation of what they said was they might consider that again, but they wanted input from the town of Lyons before they did it.
Let's, can we, I want to make sure that we don't have an in-depth conversation about this because it wasn't on the agenda, but maybe staff could find out from Boulder County what their plans are. If they have them.
Yeah.
They're still in the thinking about it stage.
And just kind of what the timeline is, so that if we do need to get it on an agenda in the future, we'll have plenty of notice. Especially
I would move the approval of item 3 of the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, now we have a proclamation in honor of International Holocaust Remembrance Day. And I'm going to say a couple of things, and I think Trustee Dolman also wants to say a couple of things. What I want to say is that were it not for 1,000 miracles and some really, really good luck and the bravery of my great-grandparents, I would not be sitting here today. And that is true for many members of this community. And I have heard from not just a few members of this community that it is a scary time to be publicly a Jewish person. And so I know that the vast majority of this community is so entirely supportive. And I am so grateful for that. And I am really pleased to be reading this proclamation.
So I just want to honor my uncle, great uncle, who is from Germany, and his mother saw everything that was up and coming, and so she sent him and his sister to the United States when they were young, and they both went here and never heard from their family again. think it was 1938.
If there's anything anyone else would like to add, it'll be the time. Okay, this is a proclamation in honor of International Holocaust Remembrance Day. Whereas January 27th marks International Holocaust Remembrance Day designated by the United Nations General Assembly to commemorate the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau, the largest Nazi concentration and extermination camp. And whereas January 27th, 2025 marks 80 years since the liberation. And whereas today and every day we remember and honor the memory of the 6 million Jews who were systematically murdered by Adolf Hitler and the Nazis, along with millions of other innocent victims, including people with disabilities, LGBTQ people, political dissidents, and others targeted for persecution. And whereas anti-Semitism has been defined by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance as a certain perception of Jews, which may be expressed as hatred toward Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed toward Jewish or non-Jewish individuals and or their property, toward Jewish community institutions and religious facilities. And whereas International Holocaust Remembrance Day serves as a solemn reminder of the dangers of hatred, bigotry, and anti-Semitism, and underscores the importance of education, vigilance, and action to prevent such atrocities from occurring again. And whereas the town of Lyons reaffirms its commitment to promoting tolerance, understanding, and human dignity, while standing against all forms of hatred and discrimination. And whereas it is our duty to ensure the lessons of the Holocaust remain a cornerstone of our collective memory, and to honor the resilience and courage of those who survived and rebuilt their lives. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Holly Rogan, Mayor of the Town of Lyons, do hereby proclaim January 27th, 2025 as International Holocaust Remembrance Day in the Town of Lyons, and call upon all residents to join in solemn remembrance of the victims, educate themselves about the Holocaust, and commit to building a more tolerant and compassionate society. And it is further resolved that I and all citizens are urged to honor the lives that were lost and do their part to end anti-Semitism. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the Town of Lyons to be affixed this 21st day of January, 2025. Thank you.
Is there a flag or anything that we can?
Okay, we'll move on to the next item, which is boards and commissions. And tonight we have an update from the EBC. Thank you for joining us, Paul.
Pleasure, thanks for having me and appreciate the proclamation about Holocaust remembrance. It touches my family as well. Both my grandparents escaped them in various times, so thank you for that and pleasure to be here. Right, David?
Dive in.
Right on.
We did get all three.
Yep, I know in your packet, there are 3 letters, one on thoughts around local vendors, and then there were thoughts around 3-phase power and thoughts and recommendation around the time of use electric rate switch proposal that's been in discussion. I think you might have been mentioning in your packet that happy to take questions fundamentally on all 3 of those ongoing discussions that we've been having at the EBC, but just wanted to share a little bit more color commentary and thoughts specifically around the local purchasing policy, which has gone back and forth. Your time is lengthy today. I will be short. I'll give some thoughts that I have, and then mostly just want to field any questions that things that are unclear about what we provided to you all in the packet. Also know the town attorney, I believe is still on, maybe not, and know that the conversation here has has a bunch of legal parts to it that we do not want to interfere with. Mostly what I wanted to say is the purpose of the document that we shared is not for change in policy per se, and not for change in actions. It's really a document around communication and conversation. We spend a lot of time at the EDC thinking about, talking about, connecting with the chamber and local businesses around the being a business-friendly town, which I recognize is a subjective term. But we feel that it is good to just keep that dialogue open between the EDC and you all as the BOT to say, this is part of what we feel our mandate is to promote business friendliness. And I would say as an aside that we commend this DOT, this board, as being great business friendly. This conversation around just talking about local purchasing policy came from you, Mayor Rogan. So to start that conversation and then to invite us into the conversation here, this is the kind of thing that the story that we want to tell to local businesses, that you all are having this conversation, the staff is having this conversation. That's the true point of this document. It's just an increase in conversation. And a lot of our recommendations, and if you look at page 2 of this document, about half of the recommendations is just around empowering staff to increase transparency and communication to local businesses. To make sure that local businesses know that we do currently have a local vendor list, priority vendor list, that we keep on file, and make sure that we're doing annual reach outs to the businesses in case someone is not on the list that we already have. And further empowering the staff to communicate the restrictions, not too dissimilar to what you all were just talking about, the weed policies, the spraying of weed policies, not the marijuana policy, spraying of pesticides policies for weeds, that we're bound to just know is have local businesses understand the restrictions that we face. So a lot of this is just around communication empowerment of the staff. And then we do make a recommendation on the bottom of page 2 of materials there, just in certain cases where it's legal under current policies, where if we have 2 different bids or 2 different providers, and they come in at exactly the same cost, or whatever the process is, and further empowerment of staff, it makes sense where that local business is the same cost as an out-of-town vendor, and it makes sense due to time, experience, nature of the policy, that is a factor. That could be a factor to choosing without going into any legal ramifications. I believe so, Attorney Tiffany, correct me if I'm wrong. So that is the one, it's just like this awareness piece and communication piece, that we wanted to just continue a conversation. I'll stop there, and again, happy to take questions on those other 2 letters that we have submitted, but starting with the local first being thoughts that we have.
Anybody have any questions or thoughts?
Just a clarification, this may be more for staff, but yeah, on the local contractor list, I think that includes lots of contractors outside of town limits, is that correct?
We keep a
Or do
contract,
you have one that's just town?
we can filter it however we want.
Okay,
So we have a list of everyone who's a licensed contractor in town and has, registered or paid their fee.
okay.
It's kept in a database, so we can definitely pull local.
Okay.
And although we're not recommending any, again, change of action, on page 1 of the document, we make a recommendation to define quote unquote local as it's useful as someone with an 80540 zip code. So to include folks that are not right in town.
Since we're talking about that list of contractors, are they permanent contractors? I'm assuming with the town, is that?
Yeah, if you're in good standing.
They have a business license with the town. I haven't seen this list, but I was having a conversation with Edward Keene yesterday, who's the chair of the Sustainable Futures Commission. And we were wondering if that list of contractors actually identifies, or are we able to legally identify those contractors who know about electrification or have had some kind of training around heat pumps or things like that, if we're wanting to promote sustainable practices? Because there are
That
ways
might
to
be a
identify.
question for the
Is that-
attorney, if
Yeah.
that's legal.
Is that legally possible to put an asterisk beside their name to denote whether they have
Experience with
electrification?
green.
Yeah, with sustainable practices, like heat pumps, for example.
Yeah, if that's somehow related to what is being bid on, I think that's perfectly fine. It could be a qualification, of a responsible bidder that, they are compliant in these ways. I think that I would have to have more information on what exactly was being bid on, but I think in certain circumstances that would be fine.
Well, I think in the circumstance we were discussing, it was behind somebody, I guess, a resident pulling a permit to remodel their basement or remodel their home or add an ADU, for example. And let's say they're looking at going electric and wanting to identify in that list of contractors or vendors, are they eligible?
That's not, I don't think that that's something that the town wants to weigh in on. I think that's more of a Chamber of Commerce thing.
Dolores had.
Go ahead, Eric.
Going to mention, so we're getting a little astray or up. There's a difference between business licenses for businesses in town and contractors are from all over anywhere that wants to do contracted work, construction in particular that you're talking about somewhere. So while it might be there, it doesn't really deal with the local aspect. You're gonna have green contractors from anywhere in the state that may want to come up here and do some kind of
And,
work.
and the focus of this conversation is town.
Exactly, not homes, not private businesses.
Did you?
Also, I was just gonna say on that note, as a best practice for the town, in the last 20 years that I've been here, people will come in, we provide them with a list of contractors that are in good standing. We never make a
We
recommendation.
can't make.
Because if that contractor does something at that home that that homeowner's not happy with, then it becomes, well, the town recommended them.
We
to
just
us.
provide a
So
list
best
of
practice,
everyone.
we do never make a recommendation. We say these are the licensed contractors in town. It's up to them to do their due diligence.
Yeah, so Ed might want to talk to the chamber.
So in that example, could you provide that list? Because that's huge. And I've
Oh, yeah,
got it
and we
for-
can filter it out. They can
by
say, I
town
need an
residents.
electrical contractor. You can go into Cassell and it'll pull up a list. If there's 30, we
Yeah.
hand them the list and it'll have their name, their address and a contact number.
Yeah.
It's up to them. to
Trustee
go.
Dan is just asking, can we also add a filter for those who have green electric?
I don't know if that's in the Cassell module. I don't, that's not something we just
Or
put
star or
electrical
something.
or,
I understand what you're asking.
mechanical engineer.
We still want to recommend them.
No, of course not.
But
It
just
was
saying
just to
they work on it.
clarify, yeah.
But in terms of the content of the local purchasing
Yeah.
policy thoughts, let's bring it back to that. Does anybody have any questions about that or the other two items that are in the EBC report?
Hey, Mayor Rogan, may I weigh in just for a second to kind of put a further point on the legal concern on this too? I don't know if it was apparent from that discussion what the issue is or not.
You bet.
So essentially, because the issue here is that because we're a statutory municipality, we don't have the explicit authority to create a local preference in the ways that home rule communities such as Longmont might, or might give them, in part of the bidding process, a 10% edge if you're a local business versus a non-local business. And we don't have that sort of authority because of the statutory nature of our municipality. But what we can do is we can adopt a preference for when there's a tie that the local bidder would basically trump the non-local bidder in that case. But otherwise, we're pretty much inclined to do the lowest responsible bidder, regardless of where they're from.
And that's our recommendation when it is high. And then, but further clarification from us, even when it is a tie, making sure that empowerment of staff is looking at the relevance of the project and making sure that that bidder has the right experience and can do timeliness and all that sort of thing. That's all outlined in our document.
Just a couple of comments on the others. Are we?
Please.
So I appreciate your input on three-phase power.
Yep.
I think what I got out of that was be smart about it. Don't go on a bunch of money unless the demand, and then better understand what the needs are of business owners. To me, it seems like those that are obviously high power intensive, and it's cheaper for them to run three-phase power on those type of machines. So anyway, so I appreciate that input. And then time of use, it's a tough one. And I wanted to ask, just to clarify with Aaron, we just have one rate. We don't have a commercial rate, because in there you suggested excluding commercial or certain type of businesses, that mainly restaurants. So, but my understanding
Slightly
is
different. There are two rates, slightly different, commercial and residential.
there is, okay.
Yeah, it's residential and non-residential.
Right.
But that's not commercial, that's not residential and commercial, it's residential and non-residential.
Right. That's how it's.
Right, that was my understanding, so we don't have a commercial rate, so is it feasible to establish a commercial rate? And and tweak those for those businesses that could be high demand users during
Yeah,
peak use.
we would love that idea, and really with both time of use and the three-phase power, both of our recommendations are fundamentally what you said around three-phase power. Let's go slow to go fast, as that will say, of like, let's collect some more information. We just weren't convinced that it was either of these were wise for different reasons.
And I look at it as more of a smart build, so if you tearing up the streets and do something, then maybe it makes sense to stub it in, but not bring it into that.
For sure, yeah.
So I appreciated your comments on all three and the work of the commission on all three. And I particularly appreciated the concern for the businesses, and I do feel like I'd like to see us look at bringing the commercial rates, commercial and non-residential and residential. And not doing time of use for the commercial, just because it's another, there's no big things we can do to help in our businesses. It's gonna have to be a lot of small things. It appears to me like this could be one of them. But I wondered if you had any discussions about how we might consider doing the same, because you do mention low income. And did you have any discussions about how we might approach that if we're moving to time of use?
Yeah, someone in our presentation from Jim Kerr, he mentioned that the time of use would be helpful for lower income residents, but we didn't see the data we just wanted more information about that. So we had some conversations, but we didn't have necessarily next steps. We just wanted smarter people than us to come back and tell us what they thought.
Okay, because that's not what we've heard before in the last board. We heard that it actually would likely, they would be the ones not able to take a medic.
Yeah.
Putting their, because they just don't have the same time flexibility. Okay, I do appreciate much. So,
of course.
You're done. Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, I had a question very similar to trustee Hamrick's, where I was wondering if it was possible to only apply time of use to residential addresses. I wasn't sure if you could pick and choose.
Right, Jim, you would be some of the do more. I know he still is looking at optional time of use, if it would be possible.
Okay, that's time of use is always just a bigger discussion.
Fort Collins did that, they went residential only first, but I believe they're now phasing in commercial. Jim's got a lot of data on that, I believe.
Administrator Simonson?
I was wondering if during your discussion on the definition of local I understand the 80540 concept, but was there any discussion that 80540 is also Larimer County and actually contributing to Longmont or unincorporated Longmont, though it's not in 80540, is actually in the same county that our taxes are. We get some of all of that. Because I have a little concern about giving a preference to Larimer County, even if they have 80540. I consider Boulder County as our next region circle. I just wondered if you had that discussion or did it not come up?
Somewhat, we had limited conversation. We did, I think there's multiple right answers.
Oh, I agree. It's not an easy answer. I just want to discuss.
One of the things that is possible around the pro of just 80540, even though there's folks in Larimer County, it's still, again, giving folks that feeling that Lions is business friendly, so potentially they would, spend money here and see it more as their home community.
Yeah.
And so that was our thinking on this, that just like widening the tents, like somewhat, but I see your perspective.
Yeah, like if it's someone from hiking or Longmont or Boulder, that.
Yeah, and maybe it could be something, I think we'd want staff feedback for sure.
Oh, no, it doesn't sound like we're making an immediate change. We just want to continue the discussion. I do think Director Eystone would like to update our purchasing policy in 2025, time permitting, and so these will be good discussions too.
And I would like to see, staff is considering it, if the board is going to consider it. I think considering 80540 within Boulder County only is
That would be up to you. I just wondered if it was discussed. How they.
I
It's a great
did have the
question.
same thought
Oh,
about it, because I was thinking Pinewood, it's like, well, that's 80540, but that's Larimer.
But we wanted to include Pinewood. That was part of
Yeah.
the discussion.
Okay,
Yeah, okay.
and that is Larimer.
Well, we
Yeah.
may be having this discussion further. Any other questions for Paul?
so no action items right now on this. We're starting the consideration and
Yeah.
Yeah,
discussion.
thank you for your input on all three of these, and for your work. It's much appreciated.
Of course, yeah, happy to be here.
Thanks for coming out.
Sorry, margin late also.
Totally.
It's been very early. But we'll talk to you.
No, you have to stay till the bitter end. The door locks, you didn't know that locks at 8 o'clock, you're looking at too late.
I haven't had dinner yet.
No, go get some.
Thanks, Al.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's move on then to general business. We had a request from Anderson Hege. Is it Hege or Hage?
Hagee, but I
don't see him on here.
And when I saw he wasn't here this evening, I did send an email to him saying reminding him that he asked to be on tonight's agenda, so.
Okay, well, if he's not here, he's not here.
Yep, so I would think you can either choose not to address it, comes back, or.
Well, I think, yeah, we'll see if he comes back for another request. You never know, what's
It
going
could have
on
been
in
a
people's lives.
circumstance.
So,
Does it look like he opened up shop at New Casa?
Yes, there's several.
yeah, there's several around town.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Starting to happen. So, we'll see if we hear from him.
Just text him as well.
Yeah, I did too.
All right, well, let's move on then to discussion direction to staff on Safe Streets for All action plan. It sounds to me like there really is no direction at this point because they're gonna be coming back to us with a plan. This is like a preliminary kind of where we landed.
I think it was just more a nod of, are you good with them moving forward as the grant? As the grant requires.
I'll be interested to know what is going to happen with federal infrastructure dollars. Over the next couple of years. But, I think their approach is good. Their approach seems solid and thoughtful, and I like that they didn't prioritize for us so that we can create priorities and different boards in the future can also create
I did
priorities.
read it as prior, as they had, and I'm like, well, that's really odd. That was the one thing that was a disconnect, because I just assumed it wasn't. Okay.
That's
but
right.
It was helpful knowing it's not.
Presentations like that, you should always use ABCD. Good feedback. Trustee Hammer?
I just wanted to, I didn't say this earlier, but, and I agree with what Trustee Lowell's comments were, but, because I think most of the major issues are on the highways.
Yeah.
And we all know that's transient traffic for the most part. And so I think prioritizing those things that really affect people speeding through town. And so whether that's camera, there's a whole bunch of solutions, but that's where I think the focus should be. And they're probably cheaper and easier ones, that we could do in a demonstration. It's just slow down traffic, including the traffic study. I think that'll be important, but it just seems logical to start there and focus on it.
And I think, and I'll be curious to see, what the data shows, but I would imagine that many residents are really concerned about the elementary school.
Yeah, yes.
I think that would probably be the number one priority.
Well, and to be honest, if you're living on one side of Lyons, like, let's say the north side of Maine, and you're trying to get to the post office or the town hall or any services on the south side, whenever anybody tries to attempt that north-south crossing of the highway, I mean, it feels, when you're walking your dogs or walking your kids or you're biking, it really does feel like you're taking your life into your hands sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Because people aren't respecting the speed limit. I mean,
Yeah.
it's, we cross at Second all the time, Trustee Browning and I, and a lot of times.
I run across, but I'm getting slower.
You're gonna have to start.
You may have to, but
And the thing with, when you have two lanes in both directions and you have, I mean, You just have to literally wait to make sure like both lanes are stopping, cause you know,
Yeah.
some people, and that's where the near misses happen is. When I see kids crossing and I can see that, oh, this car stopped, I'm good to go. Well, actually, no, you can't. You can't wait for that first car. You have to wait for both cars and then you have to wait in the middle until the other side does the same thing, but both lanes. It's just.
Yeah.
I do feel.
Well,
like it's-
it sounds like it's being addressed.
Yes, I can't
So-
wait to, yeah.
So I think the discussion, I think the direction is, just to wait for the plan to come before us.
And there are gonna have to be some prioritization discussions, because if you count the hotspots on the map, there's 7 intersections, we're not gonna redo 7 intersections, it's not gonna happen. So at some point, we're gonna have to.
And those are all.
Either us
Capital
or a
intensive,
future
yeah.
board will have to prioritize.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right, great. If everybody's good with that, then we'll move on. Staff good with that?
Yep.
Just wait, okay. So we removed item 3, so we'll move on to item 4, which is overview of the board retreat and discuss whether we want to have specific goals.
I did put, our notes from our retreat in your packet to help remind you of the goal areas and those specific items that received the most, consensus to work on, in the remainder of your term. And, for the public's sake, if they're seeing this, I guess, it continues, priority areas continue to be wildfire mitigation goals, housing, infrastructure, and economic development. And within each of those areas, the board identified 2 or 3 areas that they wanted to focus efforts and make some significant progress this year. So you want to take those by section?
Yeah, let's start with wildfire mitigation.
Okay.
So I assume the top 3.
Oh, the top 3 bullets were, the bulleted items under each area were the ones that received the most
Thank you.
tallies that day. And then the others were kind of comments that seemed to get a general, nod or, some follow-up items that were just commented either regarding those bullets.
So they're based on the actual tally sheet that's also in here?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So under wildfire mitigation, the 3 top items were to incentivize defensible space, adopt a WUI code this year, and complete and adopt the CWPP in partnership with the Lions Fire Protection District.
And this is great, and I feel like, we need to schedule kind of an update from the wildfire task force, because I don't wanna have separate work streams going on for this.
We do have room right now on our February 18th agenda, if you have anything for that time period.
Is that when we gonna be ready by then?
A draft is being worked on it, I think.
I thought,
Cassidy's doing a first draft based on input from the fire district and
Right.
model code from the state task force. Use that as a starting point for our draft. I think the fire district representatives wanted one more review of the actual draft, but we should be able to do it by then.
I mean, let us know if the 18th is not feasible, then the next meeting is March.
I don't have, let me look here.
March already.
I can't, yeah.
March there. Yeah, but thank you, but I feel like, yeah, we need that information before we can direct staff to move forward. We need to have that discussion.
Yeah.
As far as incentivization. Did we get confirmation from Boulder County that they are doing the $500 rebate?
No.
Okay, so, and then we have our $500 on top of that.
Yes.
I would like to see if there's funding available to maximize that even more. Through the county's wildfire tax. So we have a wildfire tax that the voters approved. I don't know how the county is planning on spending that money, but if they wanted to talk about chipping in more. I mean, $1,000 back is great. It's great for wildfire mitigation, but if it could be something like $2,500, I think then that would really start incentivizing people, and I think that's just what we're gonna have to do.
I have an email here from, Wildfire Partners on, January 13th that says they don't have any updates on the rebate program,
Okay.
so they haven't authorized it.
They're
Well,
still
that's
doing the
more up to date.
certifications and all that and the visits and everything, but the $500 rebate, they weren't sure of the last time they asked it.
Okay. We don't have an answer. Yours is more up to date. Let's,
She said she got it.
Yeah, let's double check. And let me know, Victoria, if you want me to start poking.
we have, Cassidy is on this one too. We just need the direction from the board of how do you want to address these priority areas we talked about? Do you want, I mean, measurable goals you want us to reach? Do you just want some action items? And we don't have to solve that tonight, of course. I think this was more to just follow up from our retreat, get it memorialized, the areas that you decided to focus on. And it's up to you how you want to measure those.
Well, I think the wildfire mitigation goals are measurable. Either you do these things or you don't. Right? So I think we're probably good there. So I think our goals then are further incentivize defensible space, adopt a weed code, and complete and adopt the CWPP.
Okay.
So we can check those boxes.
And then those three other items, there was just comments that you wanted the town, because we have the Lions Fire Protection District is the experts in this area, but we want to support them. So focusing on education and preparedness to our residents, in conjunction and support with.
Yeah.
Regularly and often. And then, I understand the leveraging county funds for matching grants. I believe that's the tax you're talking about. And there may be others. And then there was a request to invite, Chief Stump to update the board in April or May on plans for the high fire season. Go ahead. And I'll
I
add,
had this information when I came in, but what is our, budget in 2025 for wildfire mitigation?
oh, and Aaron just left. Let me look that up.
Was it 25?
It is, but
It's
if,
a 75 still that rolled over.
yes, plus there's money that was rolled over, plus there is going to be a grant out that once we get the CWPP done, then we can use our 25 from this year to leverage 75 more of the states.
The only reason I ask is because in conversations we had with the folks who did the mitigation up on the Southwest Kids Trail, there was a suggestion that we go further.
That is in the 2025 plans that the Director Cosgrove talked to us about.
Okay, we're not talking goats though, we're talking Nicole and Rich, what Presto doing
Yes,
their
yes.
mitigation, as well as the Martin parcel.
Yes, those are both on the 2025
Okay.
project.
Or the plan. Anything else for wildfire mitigation while we're waiting for the task force's report? Okay. Housing goals.
Under the area of housing, the board indicated that, they did want to revise the municipal code depending on what you adopt here in the near future on ADUs and Prop 123 goals, that you still wanted to, meet those. Most likely, and we'll talk about that coming up here shortly. But that an overall, housing strategy was going to be less of a priority and be more opportunistic about housing, attainable and affordable housing as it may present itself. it was also mentioned that Dr. Cog is developing a regional housing strategy that we will also fall under. We haven't seen that yet, so we don't know what that looks like. But that, maybe we should more look toward developing a housing strategy that reflects the most recent housing survey.
I think I would add to this based on that conversation that the opportunistic housing strategy does take into account Prop 1, 2, 3, for which we've already been doing. It's just not noted here.
Oh, okay.
We appreciate you adding Prop 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I mean, I think we did it that day.
Well, it's listed in the, oh, I guess it's not. I'm happy to do that. Sure.
I think developing a 5-year housing strategy. I'm wondering about that, what the point of having a 5-year strategy is versus a 10-year strategy or a 20-year strategy, or, you know, for, if an IGA is 10 years, then why is this strategy 5 years? I think that, I'm looking at you because I think that was your idea. And so I'm wondering if you, and I should have asked the question at the workshop, that didn't occur to me.
I don't recall it. It does feel long.
Okay, if I were,
I mean, because I agree, I think that 5 years is pretty short for housing.
yeah,
It's hard to move.
It was just, I mean, you were discussing and I just made notes of things that there seemed to be, you know, a rather, interested discussion in pursuing. So at this point, we don't have any plans for that. You know, we need to complete the things we committed to through these DOLA grants. This, those other grants, but other than that, really not pursuing other opportunities unless they present themselves to us and we want to consider them.
Well, I meant to ask this in the workshop, but does the county purchase of 224 sewer would be inclusive of the Prop 1, 2, 3?
that's an open question.
So, what I have found out since we had a retreat was that it will count toward our Boulder County goal of that 10 to 12% of your housing stock being affordable. It will count toward that when they make that conversion, because currently it's not. But Prop 1, 2, 3 needs to be a question to someone at DOLA that I was on a webinar, but there were way too many people, so and you did do that.
Because I know the question arose with 317 Evans, but that was 3, 4, 2, 3.
Yeah,
It's a similar type.
One, Evans qualifies.
for our Prop 1, 2, 3 goals.
I thought that
I
one,
thought it was all
It
before.
did not.
We thought it didn't because it happened before we,
oh, you're right, but now that they didn't move in yet.
Well, that's what I.
So I'll clarify that when I get her as well.
yeah,
I mean, that could be like a blessing in disguise.
yeah.
It doesn't help Lee out much, but it does help us.
Well, I think building a little bit more housing would help us more.
Well, that's true.
I'll make a note, I'll ask.
I would expect that the sewer property, as that goes along,
Mhm.
Boulder County Housing further develops their plans, what they want to do. I'd be amazed if the town isn't asked to contribute in some form or fashion to that. Actually, regulatory, whatever. So it seems to me.
Yeah.
If a county and a town are cooperating on a project that normally qualify for Prop 123, they should both get Prop 123 credit. Otherwise, there's not an incentive to cooperate. It makes sense. It makes perfect sense. So, but we need to clarify that with DOLA, that if we contribute financially, time-wise, whatever, fees, for example. Or we can propose the whole bill. We haven't got to that stage yet, but I'd be amazed. I'm not aware of any affordable housing project that hasn't had some local contribution to that. We would expect to see that whole thing. It should qualify for Prop 123 for us as well as the county, I hope.
We move on to infrastructure.
Sure. Under infrastructure, it was identified to complete the design of and bid the major amenities at the wastewater treatment facility and the permitting with CDPHE that goes along with that. That was the number one for the majority of the trustees.
I just, there's a couple of other components that aren't on this particular list. but
Yeah,
that-
I
in
do-
general, that's right.
Yeah, I wrote these as
Yeah.
what was on the tallies.
Yeah.
And then actively pursue funding for construction of stormwater improvements. And I would also say that should continue to be design and construction of stormwater improvements. Installing a sidewalk near the elementary school.
The Safe Streets for All action plan, I mean, they don't really talk about sidewalks, or we didn't hear a lot about sidewalks.
That's because they referenced the sidewalk assessment and it's the number one in that one.
Okay, but I would imagine that like, if we're thinking about the elementary school area, we'd be thinking about that holistically.
Yes, and actually, that's how this was originally listed, but for this year's budget, you have enough to either do the sidewalk on the east side down to Main Street or be the matching funds to the larger project that we have submitted and we're waiting for, which should be the whole area.
Okay.
So that's, yeah, I debated how to do this. Minimum, we would do the sidewalk on the east side with your current budget. More hopeful that we'll get the Safe Streets for All grants. And then that 235 or whatever, 165 or whatever we had there would become the matching funds to the entire area.
That would be amazing. Okay.
But at a minimum, in your term, get a sidewalk on it. And then
What do you
the
mean by the east side?
Third Avenue. And then there was this discussion of developing a long-term capital investment plan,
Trustee Hamrick's plans.
including how to fund those.
And I just suggest it's longer than 5 years, it would be probably 30 years.
It just said at least five.
Yeah. And I would be glad, is Cassie still coming in for a week?
Yep.
Okay.
She and Aaron know, I told them that you have made yourself available to them.
Cause I think the three of us, I think she has a pretty good idea of the concept, but I think sitting down with Aaron and just, we can whiteboard out cause it's the devil's in the detail running and getting.
That and funding, you might need Tracy there too, for if it's gonna be kind of grants or statuses.
Well, it's more drawn out. Just what the capital plan looks like, and then the follow-up discussion is, how do you fund that?
Yeah. So, no, I've already told them they are aware.
Thank you.
Anything else on infrastructure right now that needs more measurements? Are you wanting to say how much or a dollar amount you want to spend at the wastewater, or you just want to wait as that comes in?
I think again, these are actionable goals.
Okay,
The UAB is going through that item by item and they're about, I would say halfway through reviewing that, and they're gonna have some recommendations to make on that.
just so you know, over this very cold weekend, the wastewater treatment facility blower went out.
No.
So that's gonna may change the priority of how that works. They were able to get it back up and running. I haven't heard yet if it was due to extreme cold, but Aaron told us that this morning at our department head meeting that Ramey was there quite a bit over the weekend, keeping the blowers going, so.
The blowers were a component of the
Yeah.
re-permitting CDPHE.
So just so you all know that,
primary
okay, that may change.
focuses.
And then the last area, because it was discussed earlier, was a couple economic development goals. Including completing the annexation and initial development of the eastern corridor. Potentially including the residential portion of that. And then supporting the hotel development downtown in whatever way is possible, feasible, and effective. And I'll schedule something with them to talk to them about what that might look like. And then, there was some support. It was not majority. I think it was a 4. It might have been majority. Support the formation of an urban renewal district, potentially in the Eastern Corridor. And then there was verbiage about more specifically just for one property at a time. But there was some support to be supportive of that if the owner of the south side of Union Highway or north side wants to come forward with their own plan. And then we talked about what are some funding sources for to help assist our commercial industries. And so I am to contact several of these different groups to see if there's any programs out there we are not tapping into that we might be able to apply for. And then doing some education with our public on the hotel as an economic driver in our downtown or our community.
Yeah, I think you captured that accurately. I want to say before I forget, I saw Dr. Reitano at Dr. Cog last week. And she said that she had mailed an envelope to the town that contains for each trustee a sealed envelope with our feedback. We haven't received it yet. I was hoping we would get it by now so I could hand everybody their envelopes tonight. So I'm gonna double check with her that she didn't send it to our street address versus our PO box, which happens quite frequently when people say, I sent you something in the mail. Did you get it? No. So so just know that that's coming. And she had those done like the next day.
My only other comments from a staff perspective on these would be the intent that we would like to take these would be, of course, to, start getting these in some form of a quarterly reporting. Yes. But that the next time the mayor and I meet with the board and commission chairs, which will be in February, will be to share these goals with them. So they know where they should be putting forth some of their efforts as well. And then if there's boards and commissions that do not have specific strategies here, kind of telling them that we would like them to come to the board for they're supposed to be coming to you twice a year for updates and get some direction on supporting what they want to work on their boards and commissions that might not be on this list.
Sound good? Thank you. And thanks everybody again for participating in that. I know it's a big ask, a whole half a day on a weekend day. So and thanks to you for making that happen.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Good. I'm glad you think so. Sometimes those retreats are not good, and I think that this was a good one.
I think she was a good facility.
She is a very good facilitator. Yeah, an impressive person. Okay. Next up, we have discussion direction to staff on Prop 123 strategies. And we have input from Housing and Human Services and PCDC. Feel like this has been going on for quite a while.
I know. We made the commitment to opt into Prop 123, and we need to adopt formal strategies to pursue. So I included, I know it's in a PowerPoint and I don't need to put it up there. It's just as easy. It was just easier than rewriting a whole new staff memo. But you can see that Housing and Human Services and Planning Commission have some similar strategies, but they also have some separate strategies for consideration. I did include the original fact sheets because if any of you have questions on what defines that strategy, it takes you right to the measurement that the state's kind of expecting. So we need to talk about which of these you want to adopt so I can put that into a resolution form and then get that to the state, or we will not be eligible for funding, whether or not we meet that goal. So
An ADUs by right counts, even
Yes.
though we didn't decide it, the state decided
Right.
for us.
That's HB 241152, right?
Yep.
And so can we assume that numbers 3 and 10 are? They say they're completely required, so can we just assume that those two are part of our strategies?
Yeah, I think we should.
So we should start with 3 and 2, 3 and.
Are you
3 and
following
10.
on that? When you're using the numbers, are you using the staff memo?
I'm using the staff memo.
Okay.
That lists them from 1
Just
to
so we're on
15.
the same
Yeah.
page with
So
numbers.
3 was actually a recommendation from the Housing and Human Services Commission, but it's actually required as the expedited development review.
Did you, Victoria, you logged into the meeting to
No, but I can
display?
be very quickly.
Yeah, let's do, I wanna make sure we're all looking at the same thing.
Okay. I know there were lots of different documents and
Yeah.
for the webinar.
If you can't, we can all just.
I'm joining right now as a
Okay.
panelist.
Recording in progress. And I'll make you host. And now you can share your screen.
You'll need to turn off your speakers, Victoria, says an echo.
Well, the one that is required is the expedited review, we know that.
Mhm.
And the ADU has also somewhat taken care of itself here, so. I will pull up the cover memo,
And we need how many strategies?
minimum of 3.
Minimum of 3. But we can have more than 3.
Yes, you can have more than 3.
'Cause
And
it's still-
actually, last time you talked, you had 4.
Yeah, and right now we have 2.
Do I have to open it in the share? Packet did not work.
It's okay. We'll just.
No, I can do it as,
Yes, try.
HTML, PDF.
Probably a PDF.
I'm interested in subsidizing or reducing local government fees.
Yep.
I think that's kind of a no-brainer.
Here we go.
We've already done
does.
that.
And it doesn't say how much, so we work through the financials and working back.
Yeah, it could depend on, every development is different, right? So
Well, we saw that.
everyone will have different requirements or
And in
asks.
fact, we've done that to some degree to every
Right.
affordable housing
Yeah.
development underlying one way or another.
Yeah,
So, but
Here you go.
I think there are a couple of others that are also absolutely allowable under our existing code that we need to add a little wording to, like, for example, one of them is not require minimum housing size. I don't believe our code requires, has a minimum, it has a maximum, it has a minimum square footage per lot. But to allow smaller dwelling units, I don't think we need to do anything other than maybe add a sentence in the code somewhere that says there is no minimum dwelling unit, but check that box.
You're getting
No,
the,
well,
so I can't.
yeah.
do it. Sure.
And there's another one about PUDs. We have in our code, PUD residential planned unit development district. Again, I think you could add a sentence that says these are available for affordable housing. So I think a couple of these are no brainers.
Which numbers?
yeah,
That's
I'm
a lot.
trying to track these.
11 and 12.
That would be.
Oh, yeah.
11 and 12.
Yeah.
And in some way, we already do small square footage when you can allow a tiny house.
That's what
Right,
I'm saying.
yeah,
We don't
right.
have a minimum square footage for potentially, so we do that.
Well, and depending on how the next conversation goes around, Carter Court, we could look at number 1.
And I was gonna say that too.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree. I think number 1 is a good strategy.
And it's really one of the few things where we can put skin in the game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So 1, 2, 3, 10, 11, 12.
Yeah, I think.
1, 2, 3, 11, 12.
10, 11,
Yeah.
So Jola should be happy with us. We're coming to them with 6. We're really good students.
I would say under the other innovative strategies, we already have in the budget this year, like potentially the property tax rebate for small ADUs rented to less than 80% AMI income. To me, that's an innovative strategy.
Yeah,
That's true.
that's very true. Let's include that.
Which one?
So, I
Under
just wanna
other
make sure.
innovative
You are,
strategies,
so at 1,
we
2,
have
3, 10, 11, 12, 15.
approved as part of this year's budget, property tax rebates for ADUs rented to less than 80% AMI. Publicize it, we got it out there yet, but.
We need to do that.
We need to do that.
You know,
In fact, there was a couple that was here at the last meeting, I think, that interested in that.
It's not
Yeah,
15.
exactly, the kind of people that say, hey,
Other
you
now.
consider, just participating in the property tax rebate, using money.
Yeah.
Might exist.
Not number 15.
It's not 15, it's other novel,
Gotcha.
general.
Yeah.
Other novel,
Yeah.
innovative, creative approaches, general. Okay. So that's a good list. So we're all good.
The last one might come out of something too.
Yeah. So we're all good with those being included in a resolution that will be on consent at our next meeting.
Making sure we're all on the same page, that is 7 things.
That is 7 things total. Okay.
So
Great.
if we have to make, if I'm able to submit it as a, a minimum 3 that we commit to, just to be eligible for the funding, do you want to stick with the ones we've been talking about longer? And then say we are also working toward these other 4?
I think we submit all 7.
All 7, okay, because I'm not sure we'll be
Yeah.
eligible for funding until then we reach those. I'm not sure on that. That's when I have to,
Okay.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If we commit to 7,
Well, I don't know that that could possibly be true, because what we're doing by committing to 7 is we're just making it more likely that the housing will actually get built.
I know, I just think though, to be eligible for the Prop 123 funding, you have to commit to and 3 goes.
Yeah. But if you have definitely, if you
I'll find
have
out, yeah.
questions, find out for sure.
Yeah.
Because if that's true, then we may want to pull number 1 off again.
Yeah. Because we don't know for
I
sure.
don't know for sure.
Yeah, okay. Great. Thanks for bringing that up. Okay, so next up, we have discussion directions to staff following appraisals of Carter Court lots. And then after that, I'm gonna ask that we take a quick 5-minute break. And I can make sure that Ned's ready to join us before we hit our last item. So, and also it'll be probably 9 o'clock. Carter Court lots.
At a previous meeting, the board had instructed staff to get an appraisal of at least one of the Carter Court lots. To have a better idea of their value. And so we hired Martin Zusloff, who is a local appraiser and was also served on your IG task force, who had a good understanding of the issues. And he and our engineer met and went on site together. And he, in your packet is the submittal of his appraisal of the northernmost lot. What is that? Western? And so his opinion is that those lots are valued at $290,000. It's high. It is higher than I thought they would be.
Yeah, that's certainly getting started. For those lots.
He considers them fully buildable.
So is the one, I'm sorry.
They're buildable. I mean, it's gonna take some work, but they're. And we did not discuss with him used as affordable, used as community garden, used as any type of uses necessarily. Justin that's why I signed Justin with him, because he's not involved with any of that. I wanted a very just neutral appraisal of the lot, and that's what he gave us. So now we need to decide if the board wants to do anything with the lots. Do you want to, I have been, contacted by, Studio Sheds, the group that was here on your panel that night who had an interest in these two lots. He has asked for an appointment next week with me. He was gonna be tuning in on this to see if it's gonna be available. So we need to decide if this is something you want to just retain as is, another use towards part of our contribution toward an affordable or attainable project, or put on the market. Those are the options I came up with. There may be others.
Yeah, I definitely have a preference for affordable housing, particularly, now that came back. It raised, if, to me, if we're able to do that, that would take precedence over any other thing. Of course, we've had concerns about, is it buildable? Is the, the flood zone an issue? Is the river an issue? But I think we should pursue that first, just pursue.
So are you suggesting that, the town contribute the land? For
Yes.
affordable housing?
Yeah. I'm sorry to make that clear.
One of my concerns about these was always the fact that we are, $70,000 into these lots for the curtailed banking. That 70,000 includes the $27,500 penalty that we owe to the district for the grant money that now has to be returned to them since construction is.
No, that's not true. That's not accurate. I'm sorry. It's not accurate. They had said if you remediate the bank, not necessarily to the design that we originally put in, they did not know that it would have to be repeated.
The banking is not being remediated. They
There,
took the money out of the budget. $122,000 is no longer in the budget. I don't know what Justin has in mind for quote remediation. To me, it seems that all he's really doing is sort of dressing up the back a little bit to allow the house to be built there. He's not really taking care of the 12-foot banking back there. That's not being remediated. So you can make your case with the district to see if they'll forgive the $27,500, but I'm not sure how much traction you're going to get there.
I have an email from them saying they will certainly.
Excuse me?
I have an email from them that they will consider it once they know what the design will be of the final.
And Justin is an engineer working on the design.
Gotcha. But the point always was that the whole banking was to be remediated. If you can do that, that's wonderful. Then that brings the nut down to $42,600 of town money that we put into the design that we're never going to use. So that, again, that's my concern. I seriously doubt whether anybody's gonna buy these lots to put up a home at 259,000 or whatever they are. We might take a flyer, put a sign out there, see if they'll go. I just don't see anybody coming in and building a home on these short lots, because if you look on the appraisal, you'll see that probably 20% of the lot that was appraised has actually been lost to the flood. So it's not 10,600 feet or 10,260, whatever it was. It's more like an 8,000 foot lot, given the amount that was lost off the back side of it. It's also going to be tough for somebody to build a home there, given the town regulations about how far from the street the house has to set back, which is the point of Justin's design there. He looked like he had very short houses with literally no backyard.
Well, he was designing toward a town supported affordable project
I
that
got
he
you.
might waive that frontage or
I
something.
got you.
Yeah.
So that's my point. You know, if we want to put a sign out there and see if there's any takers, that's more money into the town coffers. again, my concern is I'd just like to get that money back. Well, oh, by the way, we also heard from the gentleman about 3 months ago, who was suggesting a community garden. I think he lives in one corner.
That's why I put that on there as a community use.
Trustee Hammer?
Yeah, I was a little surprised when I saw that. Yeah, numbers that came back, 2 million. So. I agree with Mayor Pro Tem as, hey, let's use this as incentive for housing, for affordable housing. However, the only thought I have with it being worth that much, let's say we sold both properties, bank hold $500,000, could we earmark that $500,000 for affordable housing in some other way to leverage that beyond 2 houses? I don't know.
Well, we
Just
don't
thought-
have a housing authority.
Fair enough, but could we?
I don't know.
It kind of, you know, we've talked about land banking, we don't have anything in the bank,
Right.
but could we create a separate fund that could be used to incentivize other affordable? Just a
I
thought.
want staff input on that.
I did in my memo, and Brandon, I don't know if you saw this, but this was used as park. This was Summit Housings, these 2 lots were in exchange for the park fee that's
Right,
required at permitting. So I don't know if we sell them, do the funds have to go to the park fund? That's the question I didn't know, because it is specific that those are in exchange for the park fee.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, but I mean, part of me thinks there'd be justification for it not necessarily go to parks because it was never dedicated for a parks purpose. And so it's not like something came out of the parks fund, but I could see the other argument too, is that it was exchanged in lieu of park fees, so it should go to the parks fund. But it's somewhere to think about it more. I don't think we're gonna find any explicit guidance on that though. It's gonna be a judgment call.
I wasn't sure on that also because one of the options is to keep it for community garden or something, which would be parks.
Yep.
Do that.
I just put in the options that we came up with.
Yeah.
So considering that, Trustee Hammer, what do you think?
I'm just throwing it, I think that devil's in the details to work out, could we? And it may be such that the highest and best use of these 2 properties is to create 2 affordable housing units. I'm just throwing out for consideration as
It
was gonna be 4.
4, right?
4, okay.
4 on.
On each, so that's 8 total. And our proposition 1, 2, 3 goal was 9 or 10.
Oh, okay, that changes things. So maybe the highest and best use is.
Yeah.
Affordable housing.
So I think it was.
Please.
I think if we. Were to sell them, it money, it still, then we still run into the issue of where.
Exactly.
And how are residents going to respond, where, I think we're looking
Right.
at. Town-owned property
In
in an area that has already been designated in that direction.
Yeah.
We don't get the pushback.
Yeah.
And we do get the benefit of a additional.
It makes sense.
Trustee Browning?
My preference would be to list them for sale for a limited period of time. If we don't get an offer to produce significant funds, then, budget, the town offers that then be made available to, the process would be made available for affordable housing. If we do get funds to them, I can think of one possible use. I suspect there'll be plenty to be done on the senior property. For example, we sold them for $500,000. I think we'll be working with Boulder County on the property line, or maybe utilities work there. So I think we can find a purpose for it. But partly because it was a waiver of fees, and partly because of potentially $70,000. I'd like to see it listed for sale for maybe 90, 120 days if we don't get any acceptable offers. And I would kind of be surprised if we did. I think it would be hard to build a traditional home there. Then at least we can tell our taxpayers that, we tried to get value for it, nobody made us an acceptable offer. We didn't make it available at little or no cost to affordable housing development. It really costs the taxpayers. That's my preference.
Thank you. Trustee Donovan?
I would say affordable housing.
So, looks like, 5 of 7 of us are wanting to see it have been used for affordable housing. Okay. Thank you, everybody. And so let's take,
Question, but
yes.
would you contemplate sending out like an RFP for multiple potential affordable housing?
I would think so, because,
I think to Boulder County first.
I think Boulder County also might have an interest in these 2 lots.
And there was 7 or 8 comps that justified the price tag. Even though I was surprised it was that high, I went and looked, there was a lot around the corner that was 410,000.
That's right.
So,
Like the other entity, the shed.
yeah.
Studio
shed.
I mean, one difference in Boulder County and private owner or property taxes, Boulder County land's not taxable and private ownership is. But I thought Boulder County would be odd, because Boulder County is getting out of the small housing unit.
They have to spend their money. They have to spend their
So,
tax money.
If you don't mind, since we're talking about this, I recently had a very lengthy conversation with Boulder County. They're calling, what they're calling the AAHT, which is the affordable, what's the other, attainable and affordable housing tax fund money that is, becoming available this year. The county commissioners did come up with their formula of how they want to split that out. There is a specific portion going to what they call the entitlement community, so that's the city of Boulder, city of Longmont, and Boulder County. And then there's a percentage or an amount that's gonna be set aside for all the other communities. So they are meeting with each of us to say, do you have any shovel-ready projects for 2025? Or 2026 that you can, there's 2.5 million available to the small communities each year. And so I had a conversation with them, and they said Lafayette's up to their ears with Willoughby Corners in those 3 phases. And they said, I told them about, we talked about Seward. We talked about these 2 lots. We talked about the potential out on the Tebow annexation on the backside. They inquired about Shady Acres, and they said, you are actually sitting much better because we can use this money to purchase land too than the other communities in the area. And so she said, I think we would have a strong interest in purchasing land in town if it's available. And so then they wanted, there's several lots that could be used for that purpose. So they, I think they might be interested.
What did they say about Seward? How would they make that work?
For Seward, what they reiterated was they wanted to know, they said for 2025 at Seward, we are stabilizing the properties, making it safe, bringing it up to HUD standards. They said the biggest thing that they need to get done in 2025 is to rezone it. It is not zoned for that use right now. And so, but she did say there are 2 vacant trailers there now, mobile homes, that they are going to have demolished and removed. And they understand that those can't be replaced until it would be rezoned. But she said they need it for working space on the site. And she said, we want to start having some discussions with the community on how do we feel about how density on this site. If they decide they want to do a 2-story where the apartments are now and converting mobile homes over to a different type of structure. But she basically said, do you think the community would support 10 more units on that site? But
I'm concerned that this is going out of the bounds of the discussion topic and
so
it's
Carter Court, but
something.
anyway, Carter Court, she also inquired, she said, and I said, it depends on what happens at tonight's meeting.
I think it would be useful to maybe do a community update about 224 sewage and your next administrator report for our next meeting.
I don't know that just from what she said,
Just from what we know so far. I mean,
that's pretty much what I just said.
but
yeah.
not everybody is listening to this. meeting,
Okay.
So.
Okay, sure. I can ask them for one. And
Yeah,
that'll be from
good.
them.
That would be even
I
better.
don't want it to
Yes.
necessarily be second.
Terrific. Okay.
So on this, you retain right now, and as I get inquiries on it, since we're looking at opportunities not pursuing.
Yeah, it sounds like Boulder County has an interest, so that's great. And it sounds like Studio Shed has an interest, so.
And they
so
have an
that's
appointment
great.
next week.
And they have, so let's find out what happens.
And Boulder County also said, we don't have an issue with working with the private sector people and a partnership.
Okay, great.
And so she said, we're hiring all sorts of these smaller companies to do the building because we don't have that. So I think that's the model they're looking at for some of these smaller things.
Okay, great. Let's take, thank you, everybody. Let's take a quick break. And I know, trustee Nicole, Sterling from Ned is on the meeting waiting, but let's take a quick break and we'll come back and do our last general business item. So it might not be it might be 9:22.
You don't
We're back.
Okay.
That's what I was just.
Gentlemen? Okay, and trustee Sterling, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, not a problem.
I know that you all had a meeting tonight too, so really appreciate it. For those of you who don't know trustee Sterling, Nicole Sterling, trustee for the town of Ned, and you've been a trustee for how long now?
I'm actually now Mayor Pro Tem of
Oh.
Netherlands. So yes, and I've been a trustee or I've sat on Board of Trustees for now 3 years.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Mayor, this is Mayor Billy Giblin. We just ended our meeting.
Oh, awesome. Can you promote Mayor Billy too?
He just doesn't have his camera on.
There you go.
Oh, there you go. Okay, well, good thing you all don't have a quorum. Thank you. Oh, you're muted, Billy.
I think I've used these meetings. Thanks a bunch, folks, for having us. I appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us. So Mayor Billy reached out to me and asked me if the board would consider taking a position on the town of Netherlands quest to potentially acquire Eldora. And so I said, sure. And so I think the board has a couple of questions. One of them is why you feel it's important to have the support of the town of Lyons. And the second is kind of what does it mean for the town of Lyons? What would this potential acquisition mean for the health of our community? So I don't know if one or both of you wants to start fielding those questions.
Sure. Yeah, I can take a go at it and then Mayor Billy can fill in. So, why get the support of Lions? Why not? We've actually gone around to many of our neighboring communities, asking for feedback, asking for thoughts, asking for support. And so it wasn't, we oftentimes partner in a lot of regional initiatives and I know our mayors speak with each other. And so, it was one of those things of, just asking, little old town of Netherland, asking for that support from folks. And, what does it mean for Lions? Well, there's a couple of things of how we're thinking about pursuing Eldora. One is we think having it under public ownership rather than private ownership is a good thing. It's a good thing because one of the things that we really want to push for is accessibility. Not sure if you know, but to get a day pass at Eldora is now $200, $199 just to be exact. And building in some of that more accessibility for our mountain communities for the Front Range would be a big deal for us, a big goal. And also, public ownership also provides what we're really pushing for is the ability to offer the employees of Eldora, if we were to acquire it, government benefits, making them town employees and being able to do that. I'm sure many of you have seen pop up on your news feed, potentially where, folks in Utah are asking for better wages, better benefits, and this is something that, a government entity is uniquely positioned for. So those would just be a couple of things where we think that public ownership is be a really helpful, and it's rare, right? How often does a ski mountain become available? It's rare, and so and we essentially just ask why not us. But as I think more deeply, I think about where there could be some other potential benefits across our mountain communities, such as shared marketing opportunities, right? Somebody pops up into Eldora and we let them know, hey, there's this really cute town called Lyons, Colorado over this way, right? There's a lot of folks that visit Eldora that are from out of town. And so there could be some unique shared marketing opportunities. And there may be other things that we're just not thinking of, such as if there's supplies or business relationships that we just don't know, that could be a benefit for Eldora. So those are just some of the things, just brainstorming. I'm sure you all could come up with even more of where there could be some potential synergies.
I know I
Really?
can. I know I can. Got my Eldora hat on. Um, good luck. So I think in general that, it's been good to get to know Holly over the last three plus years. I guess 2.5 years or almost 3 years. I've been mayor, and I think we have similar, not the same, but similar dynamics with the county. Sometimes, in my opinion, we have a lot in like Western Boulder County means well, and I think they do their best to take care of their county, but sometimes Western Boulder County just doesn't get the resource we feel, that we could or should. And this for us is a way for Nederland and our greater community to better serve ourselves. Initially, building this economic potential between, with the town and the ski area, and allowing us to work together and improve, employment and retention for them, and hopefully starting or for the resort, and then bringing them under our umbrella for municipal employee benefits, and then possibly summer operations, and then just creating more economic, flow for us and all of Western Boulder County. And we have similar needs, I think, with housing. I think we have the potential to hire a housing coordinator together. I think that's in flux, but we're ready to go. And also exploring a multi-jurisdictional housing authority with Gilpin County and you all. And so there's a lot of things we have in common that I believe, and we believe, that this kind of economic boost to this part of the county benefits really the whole county, but really benefits Western Boulder County and northern Gilpin County. And so I think mountain communities understand themselves better than our commissioners are from big city, the cities down below, and the valley has a lot of unique and different needs, but the mountains have unique needs. And I think our companionship on many things is important, and will serve us both. And I also believe that your support of this, our venture, really is in support of us, but it's in support of you all too, through our just growing of the economy of Western and the stability of Western Boulder County.
Thanks, Billy. So anybody have any questions for Mayor Pro Tem or Mayor? Let's start with Dave.
Just curious about, there's a lot of airtime about employees and housing issues, and mainly for the larger resorts, but I didn't know if Eldora experiences some of the same things, and how many residents or how many employees that are residents of Ned versus probably most reside in Boulder County, I assume.
Yeah, I don't know that we have the specific details of how many are in Ned specifically, but they absolutely still struggle with finding housing. Childcare was a big deal. That was a big initiative where a nonprofit was trying to get a childcare facility built. And some Eldora employees showed up at our meeting because they were like, "Hey, we need it too." And so that's another reason why we see like having some of that public ownership is we can get a much more granular about some of these needs from childcare to housing and make sure we're sort of doing it synergistically, right? So yeah, they struggle with it just like the big ones.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And I saw some of the documentation with making this more of a year-round resort versus it's pretty much focused on winter. So I think that would be a big thing. pluses.
Yes, absolutely. Every,
Around jobs.
yeah, folks want concerts on the mountain. So
Concerts, mountain biking, hiking, disc golf. There's lots of different ideas of what could be done up there in the summer and then winter too, night skiing, is that a possibility or other ways to expand, winter operations? And then, also the advantage, of, the potential advantage of summer operations is, not knowing the future with climate change and exactly what kind of seasons, how long seasons would endure, ski seasons endure, I mean, climate change or not, people will still want to recreate, people will likely still live in the region and want to recreate and enjoy their lives. And so things we can do to develop other options of recreation in that area, I think, may, play into the year more that they do that.
Trustee Lowe?
Hey, I wish you well. It's an ambitious undertaking. You mentioned that municipal ownership of a ski resort is a rare occurrence. In my second career briefly as a ski bum after I retired, I worked for Gunstock Mountain Resort. That's in Guilford, New Hampshire. And the mountain, which is probably similar in size to Eldora, is owned by the county of Belknap, New Hampshire. It's under the purview of the county commissioners, but they set up a separate commission for the ski mountain. So I only mention this to you because if you're looking for some lessons learned about this, you might want to contact Gunstock Mountain Resort in Belknap, New Hampshire, and talk to the general manager there. I don't know whether he's the same guy that was there when I worked there 10 years ago, but I fully to talking to you folks about it.
well, thank you for that. And to clarify, actually municipal owned mountains are more prevalent than we think. What's rare is what I was referencing is the opportunity to purchase one. That was the rarity. But in our frequently asked questions 2.0, we listed several mountains across the United States and even internationally that do have municipal ownership. And it was surprising to us how many there actually were.
Other questions?
Well, yeah, real quick, what was the name of that resort in New Hampshire?
Belstock, New Hampshire.
It's Gunstock.
Oh, Gunstock.
Gunstock.
Yeah.
So what would a possible negative be purchasing Eldora?
Can you say that again?
But what would a possible negative be?
Well, I think of any business enterprise, right? There are all kinds of things that can happen. Revenues dip below a certain threshold. Um, you know, Oftentimes the public sector gets a bad rap in terms of, well, keeping the streets plowed. How can you run a ski mountain? But we're going into this knowing that we are going to partner with a professional operating company. So it would not necessarily be us on a day-to-day, right, trying to make the calls on whether or not how lift operations are going to be. And in terms of the revenue, as we disclose, and as Brent, the general manager, had disclosed also in his open letter to the public, the mountain is profitable. And so we're going into this. We said that we would pull out at any moment if it didn't make sense, but we're still in it because it makes sense.
I'd be interested to know if anybody's talked in any way about some sort of like transportation network between the mountain towns to get people there. I can see if there were an easy way for folks in Lyons to get up to Eldora for a day, or for folks who are skiing in Eldora to get down here for dinner or to stay at our hopefully future hotel.
I mean, there hasn't been talk about that specific transportation link yet, but at this point, because we talk about the fact that we are already tied into RTD, so we have that, advantage. The Eldora and our town are in, you can come here from the airport, you can fly into town, take your RTD
Not
trip.
for Lyons.
But yeah, so but go, you know, and then we talked and just, you know, a couple weeks ago, Holly, we were talking with the mayor of Longmont about, good night, guys, thank you, about the train, you know, and so that is something we would definitely be, you know, willing and interested to talk more about is transportation. You know, we're working already on transportation to get people who need transportation between Ward and like Blackhawk, but it would just be, you know, expanding that potential, but this time with some resource to do it. So I love the idea, and frankly, no one has brought that up to us, and I'm glad y'all are on it.
I'll drive the bus.
We have a lot of people that
Awesome.
drive in.
Yeah, we do have a lot of people that drive to Eldora from here. And there's a new mountaineering store that opened in downtown Lyons that rents skis.
There you
Oh, that's
go.
awesome. I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Maybe
Yeah.
you could do this.
Yeah.
That's great because we don't have a lot of options of up here. You know, there's Eldora, there's the ski area, and then there's one shop here. So that's great to know there's other.
Yeah. And trustee Lowell would like to know if we get a discount.
It's not as blackmail for signing the support letter. I think I made
L-
50% discount.
Regional
A
discount.
regional discount, yeah.
Yeah. So accessibility is going to be a big deal for us. You know, we've talked to folks at GoCo. Accessibility is a big deal for them. They don't want, you know, just how do you say, affluent mountain folks being able to access the mountain, especially when the daily rate is $200. I mean, that's so inaccessible for even a lot of our residents. And in fact, the only way that many of our residents are able to ski there is because they have part-time employment there and they can get a ski pass. And so that accessibility piece is going to be pretty big, and you can bet that that'll have a regional impact.
Yeah, I mean, my family's gets ski passes because my wife works at the Nordic Center part time, and so it is really, you know, that really makes it, you know, much less of a burden for us, and for folks, some folks, that's the only way. So definitely, you know, the county commissioner signed on, and that's a big thing that they um promote and is important to them and important to us. And, you know, and I, you know, I love the idea of bringing the cost of skiing down in general, but, and, you know, at the same time, we'll be working with these pros to help us, you know, bring in revenue as well. And yet I think locals, you know, this will be a community focused resort, you know, more so, you know, if we were to buy it.
And think about some of the benefits that come with being municipally owned. If we're municipally owned, what are we not paying that we can reinvest back into the community or back into affordability? We're not paying property taxes. And I can bet you that's a very hefty bill for a private company. So it's through some of those very strategic things that we're like, wait a second, we can pull things over and we can make this, you know, in the vision that we have of an affordable, economic, sustainable mountain for our community, a public asset.
Who's in your Billy in the dark?
Right, I know, you're Billy, you're in the dark.
Gotta leave. They locked up the keys
Yeah,
there.
yeah, I know you all had your meeting earlier tonight, so,
Yeah.
you know, this is a big lift, so thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I just have a comment.
Yeah.
I think it's very audacious, and if I were on your board, I would totally be gunning for this and trying to gather community support and regional support. I love the accessibility piece. I mean, that's the winning argument right there. Ski, you know, all three of my kids learned to ski at Eldora. And we had the Eldora Bowl program, you know, to put them through, but at $200 a day, honestly, our family of 5, we can't go skiing for a day. It's ridiculous. So they know how to ski, but we can't afford for them to ski. So, you know, what's the point, right? So I really appreciate you having the courage to give this your best shot. Thank you for stepping up.
So I take it you're a yes?
I'm a yes.
Trustee Number?
Yes.
Trustee Lowell?
With a discount.
Oh.
With a discount.
We'll do our best.
Yes.
We really will.
Trustee Browning?
While I wish the town board of Nederland and its citizens the best on this and trust them to make the best decisions about what is good for Nederland, I don't think this is something the town of Lyons should be involved in one way or the other, some others.
Trustee Delman?
I say yes.
Okay, and I say yes. So we will, we'll draft a letter from the town board in support.
We
Thank you.
appreciate your support. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
We do appreciate.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
great
you.
night, you guys.
You have a great
Thank
night.
you.
Appreciate it.
Now you're off the clock.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.
Okay. All right, let's move on to trustee reports. Trustee Hamrick, start on your end.
Their SFC has not met since our last meeting, so nothing to.
Trustee Dottie.
Yes, I only have one commission, on which to report. They met on January 14th. It was the Arts and Humanities Commission. I wanted to congratulate them on a successful art show, that took place last Wednesday, January 15th. You'll see new artwork here in Town Hall and also at the library. And just for anybody who did not know, if you're interested in a piece of art, yes, you put a little sticker, but there's also a form over there under the TV that you need to fill out with your information. I did not know that, but, just so you know. Hearts of Lions, you know, the program that has that 2-year revolving loan of public art pieces like sculptures that you see around town. They have received 27 submissions so far, and they're going to start the judging very soon, and hopefully we'll select 8 to 10 of those submissions with the goal of having 8 of them installed this year. When it comes to the utility boxes, that's the Creative Outlet program, but did you know there is something called the Creative Neighborhood Utility Box program, which is a private sponsorship program where private citizens can see a utility box in front of their house or on their street and decide, oh, wouldn't it be nice if that was, you know, a little bit more colorful or a little bit more in theme with our street or our neighborhood. But the only thing is that the LEHC would need to approve the design. So we encourage people to reach out around private sponsorships of these utility boxes, but LEHC would need to approve the design. What else? Let me see. There was some discussion at audience business about Beyond Word, which will take place the first weekend in May. That will also coincide with the first Sunday that the chamber will put on May 4th. And I think the town liaison might be investigating maybe a mural festival at the same time because they received a grant for $2,000 for the Broadway mural, but maybe there'll be other murals involved. And I was thinking, I can't remember if this was my idea or somebody else's, but wouldn't it be a great time? Well, the golf cart parade in Lyons.
Well, we have to talk about the golf cart drag race too.
The drag race? Oh, I'm not ready for that. Oh. But the parade I'm ready for. I think Sunday, May 4th, if there's like all of this stuff happening on that Sunday, I think it would be really cool to also discuss the idea, the support behind a golf cart parade. And then there were a few questions around an initiative we approved a budget for, which is the municipal flag. So there's a budget of $1,250, and they wanted to make sure that was all inclusive of artist and production, not just like the artist, not just production, that's like all costs.
I think that's a question for staff.
I guess I'd have to look back at our budget,
It's a separate
Workshop.
line item
but my guess is yes, that would be what we're willing to put toward it in 2025.
in total. Okay. And actually, how many flights were we thinking of producing? That was another question. Were we thinking of
I don't
putting
know
one
that we got
here
that
and
far.
the marquee?
I don't think we've gotten that far.
Because, you know, they're trying to like calculate how much it's gonna cost to produce one, and we have to pay an artist, etc. And I was thinking maybe 2 or 3 because of the marquee in town hall, and I wasn't sure if there was another location on it.
Maybe the LAHC has some recommendations that they could make to staff and the board.
Okay. And finally, I just wanted to let everybody know about an application that exists for an artist in residence program at Caribou Ranch. And so it would be really cool for any local artists to apply. I think we have an artist here actually who is applying. Yeah, I see his work right here. And so basically you would be allowed to spend, I think it's either 2 nights and 3 days at Caribou Ranch, which has tons of wildlife coming through, tons of scenic areas to paint, etc. And you would be staying, I think there's a barn on the property. That's what it's called. But just wanted to let the community know that those applications are being taken now.
Thank you.
Through Boulder County.
Thank you. You're welcome. That's great.
Ecology Board's meeting tonight, obviously I can't be there. The annual report, I set a deadline of April 24th. You're only some stuff.
April 24th.
No, January 24th. Sorry. That's all right. If you need more time, perfectly fine. Request for an agenda item or more of a question, actually, I guess. These Keith Bell lots that we had an emotional zoning discussion about, and I guess went to the PCDC. I mean, they haven't met
In months.
4 months, but I checked back. The last time they addressed it was at their October 24th meeting. And they were going to set up, they have to go through the public hearing and all that, but they have no meeting scheduled for January.
Yeah, we do January 27th.
We just said it.
Okay, I just looked, I didn't see it there.
No, I
It hasn't been
I have
posted.
to do the packet
Okay,
first.
so I just like to get those off the.
No, we would too. Aaron and I are trying to figure out our bandwidth to start that process or wait. The one planner we had in the queue, I don't think that's gonna work out. So there are currently no qualified applicants.
So they don't have a quorum?
No, on staff to do the work.
DCDC. DCDC has a quorum. It's just there's no planner and staff.
So Aaron and I have to figure out
Oh,
the schedule and how to do it.
okay.
It's definitely at the top of our radar.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Historic Preservation Committee, sufficient 2025 goals, support the economic development by fostering heritage tourism and increasing property values through the promotion of historic preservation. To encourage the stewardship of Lyon's unique cultural and historical assets for engaging the community in preservation initiatives. Complete the internal process to designate town hall historic property. Community celebrations, host events commemorating the new trail marker and the enhanced State of America exhibit at the Redstone Museum, including different collaborations with tribal representatives. And then ongoing projects advance the historic context survey and Main Street preservation study. Also had the first evaluation of History Colorado and we asked. And, so yeah, that's the major side there. In terms of questions or things to put on the agenda, just an item on. I guess I want. I think I want your opinions on this. I will be missing the second meeting in February with grandparent responsibilities. Sometimes things come first. My plan was that was the only thing I was going to miss this year. When I've been approached today about a national profile event that I can't speak about. That would have me actually an international profile in a interview with an organization that previously brought someone together from Israel, someone from Palestine, and had an international conversation that's got a lot of traction. And I got being asked to potentially do the same thing on transgender issues, not just for the US, but the US and Europe. It would be April 7, and I really don't like that I would just be missing 2 meetings in 2 months, but I hope you understand. It's rather unique nature.
Which dates?
If that comes around.
Which date? The date? Do you know the date?
It'd be April 7.
That's all?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it would be that week, but I would have to be at the location by the 6th.
And I think that's fine. I know Trustee Dottie, when you were traveling a lot a couple of years ago, missed several. But it's definitely within the bounds of our policy, and even if it were not, he would certainly have my support.
Yeah, I don't mind doing a thing with the grandkids for one time, but this one was, it's like, it's the only week, huh? There you go. That's good. Okay, thank you.
I mean, it's my birthday week, you'll miss that. Trustee Browning?
Let's see, the UEB has not met since our last meeting, from on vacation. The EDC met, but I'm heard what they've been working on today. Finalizing all three of those letters that they did, that was the main thing that they did, and they got a presentation on the streets for all program too. Future agenda request, it's moot as far as the IGA meeting is concerned, but I would like us to change our legislative policy to provide for accepting comments from citizens, audience, business at all meetings, both regular and special. My policy right now just says regular meetings. I'd like to make a one word change and delete the word regular. We can talk about that in the future meeting.
Great, thank you. Trustee Delman?
So Parks and Rec met and new member Mike Jackson was there, and there's a member who was put on the commission, but no one's been in contact and she hasn't shown up. So Kristen, yeah, so
Okay,
We have that on our,
there's
Okay.
still a vacancy.
okay.
if she was formally appointed, we need to make sure, we don't believe that she was notified,
Okay,
but we need to check on it,
Yeah,
her status, it's been several months.
Let me check my, yeah.
We know when she was appointed and all of that, we just don't know why it didn't happen, or why she didn't, isn't attended with it.
Okay,
So we need to find out some things.
okay.
okay,
If not, if she resigns, then you'll have, yeah.
okay.
Yep.
And then most of the meeting had to do with the Rocky Mountain Greenway, where they showed up here. To talk about going through Rocky Flats, and there were a couple of people who showed up. And Chris, the guy who was at our meeting, and someone else who gave some very good information. So that was the majority of the meeting.
Okay. And so is PRC gonna have a recommendation?
They are working on that. They, yeah, we're gonna try to get it virtually.
Great. Thank you. All right,
Trustee.
I have a question.
Yeah,
for
go
Trustee
ahead.
Delman. So you didn't get a chance to talk about the Stacy pretzel and creating a park over there?
We did, but that wasn't, they didn't get the, we talked about that, but that was another thing they were gonna, because it took so long with all the stuff that came in, they were gonna talk about that virtually.
So maybe next time.
Okay, so I went to Dr. Cog last week, just a couple of things. It was, the meeting was mostly, about legislative updates as the session is starting. And what we were told is that much of the focus of the legislature is gonna be on the budget deficit. And a quote from the, Dr. Cog legislative person is, "I have seen worse shortfalls, but not many." So, a lot of bills are gonna be killed in appropriations. I thought you all might be interested in this, that some of the potential fixes that they're talking about are the potential sale of the Pinnacle insurer. And, expanding legalized gambling to potentially allow online gambling. So, good news is that the senior homestead exemption is likely going to stay in place.
Ooh, thank God.
Yeah.
So,
And there were a couple of other good older adult bills that I think, are great. So, one thing that Trustee Browning and I were kind of batting back and forth is HB 25-1044 would, it's local funding for a vulnerable road users, which would be a tax on heavy vehicles that municipalities could opt into. And I think, our thought was, gosh, we're way too small for that, and, there's one person in town who has a lot of heavy vehicles, and we don't just wanna tax one person in town. But it turns out that that municipalities may be able to pool together somehow, so I don't know where that's gonna go. Bike to Work Day. Winter Bike to Work Day is on Valentine's Day. So I know a lot of people don't work, a lot of people work at home, but our local businesses may be interested in promoting that. It's a lot of fun. And then coming up, this is a busy week coming up. There is the Dr. Cog's Sub-Regional Forum meeting tomorrow, which is virtual. On Thursday, this is the CML Mayor's Summit, and I'm going to be speaking on a panel at the Mayor's Summit there. Friday is the CML Executive Board meeting, so that's a half-day meeting, and then Saturday is the full-day Metro Mayor's Caucus Retreat in Brighton. So,
As will I.
as well, Mayor Pro Tem, who is speaking at the
Wow.
retreat. We're very grateful.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Talk is done.
Are you gonna stay for the whole day? You don't have to.
Unlikely, I think, likely.
Okay,
I talked to Peggy about it.
okay, okay. All right, can we have a summary of action items, please?
Yes, item 1 is FS4A. Is to move forward with drafting an action plan and bring it forward at a future meeting. The board gave the nod to move forward with the Stan Tech Brownfield Town Hall project. Staff is to follow up with Paul Capps on the waiting list at Summit Housing. The board would like to see communication go out to the public regarding the animal shelter change from Longmont to Boulder County or to Boulder. Potential to partner with Longmont on a community-wide composting project. Next, I have staff to follow up with Boulder County on their spraying plans. Next, I have schedule update with Wildfire Task Force for either second meeting in February or the March 3rd meeting. Staff is to research if wildfire tax is available for incentivization of wildfire mitigation and status of Boulder County's $500 incentivization option. Item 9 is to invite Chief Stump in April or May for an update before the high fire season begins. Next, I have staff is to follow up with DOLA to see if the Seward/Boulder County property helps us achieve our Prop 123 goal. Next, we would like to see quarterly reporting on the Board of Trustees goals that were approved and also share those goals with commission chairs so they can see which goals they can tackle. Item 12, Prop 123, Victoria is to confirm if all 7 proposed, we would need to meet those. If so, we would potentially eliminate number 1 and then draft a resolution to be approved at the next meeting. Item 13, board consensus was 5-2 to use the Carter lots for affordable housing. Item 14, community update on 224 Seward from Boulder County, and we would like to have that go out as an e-blast potentially. Next, also communicate to the public the mayor mingle at Moxie, which is the 2nd and 4th Mondays from 11:30 to 1 p.m. Board consensus 6-1 was to send a letter of support to NED for the purchase of Eldora. Next, there was an agenda request to change our policy to allow public comments at all meetings, not just regular meetings. I think that's it. Did I miss anything?
I have, follow up on the PRC member, Kristen. Follow up, clarify on the municipal flag expenses. And I had one more there. Keep bell lots, but that's just getting it on the planning commission's radar. And then I did hear from Anderson Hagee. And I have to say, I think staff messed up. He did not get a confirmation that you approved his request.
Oh, no.
So he is asking if he can attend the next one, but you have 2 big hefty items on that, the noise ordinance and the IGA properties.
I think we can squeeze them in for 15
Okay.
minutes.
Okay.
We own that.
I told him that. I said, I apologize profusely, but I did not find where it was sent. Maybe it got in the outbox and never, or draft, I don't know yet, but unfortunately miscommunication there.
Apologize to him for us.
And then, I do have some other questions, but I'll just follow up on those. Just clarification on Lions Valley Townhome. I would like to know that too about Y-21.
Yeah.
What's gonna measure risk? And then the possibility of, um, Boulder County's plans on weed mitigation.
Thank you. Attorney Dittman, do you have anything else?
The only other thing is to get in report for the annual report by the 24th.
There you go, put that in.
All right, thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank
Is
you.
there a second?
Second.
All right, we'll vote.
That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. I almost forgot to adjourn.
Good night.
Yeah.
Hey,
Thank you. Have a good night.
wait, Brandon,
Yep.
are you going to the stock show tomorrow?
You see.
With
I'm not,
CMO?
I'm not going to stock show now. I have other
Okay.
commitments tomorrow.
You have more important things to do.
I wouldn't say more important, but obligations nonetheless. So
All right.
my wife's there right now at the rodeo though. So
Oh, good. Yeah, there's CML is taking a trip to the stock show tomorrow night too, so it's.
Good night, Brandon.
good night.
Good night, thank you.
I'm